Are we ready? Okay. We have a lot of people in here, so we turn the temperature down. So somebody give Noel over there a thumbs up if it's getting really cold, and maybe we'll bump it up here. Very, very, very special welcome to everyone here to Mountain Rescue Aspen's 33rd Avalanche Awareness Education Program. Woo! 33 years. Hey, you guys are in for an incredible treat tonight, and you're in for an incredible treat tomorrow. So this is going to be great. Welcome. I want to, a couple things here. Let me introduce myself. My name is Douglas Paley. I'm one of the rescue leaders, one of many rescue leaders on this team. And we have an incredible organization here that's going to come out and play with you guys tomorrow. So a couple of ground rules here. I talked about the 33 years. Bathrooms. There are 2 bathrooms right in this hallway over here, and there are 2 bathrooms upstairs. So I guess no reason for anybody here to ask for directions. It's pretty simple. There's a little sign, little stick figures on there. You'll figure it out. And Wi-Fi, please, 2 things. Cell phones. I just shut mine off. Let's turn our cell phones off. And let's turn our Wi-Fis off. If you know how to do that, go on your settings and make sure we're not connecting to any Wi-Fi. And I'll tell you why, because we are live streaming tonight, and this will be a YouTube recorded presentation. You can watch it, I believe, after. There's so much information. I mean, there's nothing better in learning than to repetitiveness. So you'll be able to go back and take a look at this material. Wi-Fi, phones off. We have a wireless mics here, and I am speaking in a wireless mic, but I don't dare touch it. The wireless mic is really for questions, and this is your program. So there's a lot of information. If you have paper and pencil, jot down some of your questions. We're certainly going to encourage you to come up here and challenge the speakers on some of this material. And I think that covers the left side of the whiteboard. I want to give a very special thank you to Mountain Rescue Aspen. Mountain Rescue Aspen is an amazing organization. It's a volunteer organization, and there's well over 50 members on this team. And behind the scenes over the last several weeks, months, they have been working on educational programs, and this is one of them. And so thank you very much, Mountain Rescue Aspen. I also want to give a very special thanks to the person that has really taken the lead role on this presentation, Mr. Greg Shaffron. He's holding the door open. You're going to hear from Greg. Greg's an amazing instructor and has spent a great deal of time in designing the programs for tonight as well as tomorrow. We have some great speakers tonight. By the way, I'm going to be the moderator if you haven't figured that out. Some of the speakers tonight from CAIC, Colorado Avalanche Information Center. We're going to have Blaze speaking. He's going to talk about what they do. Monty, I think you're over there somewhere. Raise your hand. Monty's going to talk a little bit about the territory that we're going to be playing in, the Forest Service, and give us a lot of really good insight as to what's going on with the Forest Service as it relates to the topics tonight. Corey, I think you're here somewhere. I did see you. Where's your hand? There you are, sir. Back there, way on the left. Corey's going to talk to us a little about weather and Aspen weather specifically. And then we're going to have one of our members, Nate. Nate, I don't know if I see you here. There you are, right in the back there. Nate's going to talk about some of the topics that go beyond beacon shovel probes. Not the least of which is what Nate, as a guide, carries in his pack when he goes into backcountry. And this is something that I always find fascinating because a lot of us go into backcountry and we think about, okay, what is that checklist? What do we put in our packs other than the obvious shovel, probe, and beacon? So one of the goals tonight is to keep this thing moving quickly and moving along. And so I think I covered all of my topics over here. Yep, I did. And without further ado, I'd like to move this program along and introduce you to the person that's taken the lead role on this whole program, Mr. Greg Shaffron.
I'll grab the mic. I'm not scared. So you guys all got an email from me, probably a couple emails. My goal right now is just to start off, introduce you what we're doing tomorrow. we're doing companion rescue. It's all day companion rescue. And when we're doing that, as I teach all my students, I see a couple former students in the room, it's really important rescuer safety. And so we want to go in, we're going to kind of pretend it's a situation that we're going out, we're making really good decisions, we've taken some Avalanche classes, we know where we want to go, and we're making great decisions, but we've seen another group who's been in an avalanche, and we want to help them. But we kind of want to be this guy, right? I kind of think of the classic Supertramp album, Crisis. What crisis? Everything's fine. So kind of calm, cool, and collected. You'll see tomorrow, the whole emphasis tomorrow is going to be on technique, not time. So just diving right into it, there's a bunch of different stages of rescue. We're spending our time tomorrow working on this rescue skill. This certainly does not substitute not being in an avalanche. That is our primary rescue skill, is avoidance and not being in an avalanche. So of course, things might go wrong. We might find another group. We want to be good companions and know how to help other people while we're out there. So you've probably seen this graph many times. It's kind of talking about probability of survivals on this axis over here. Probably should have labeled them better. And then this is duration of burial. So you can see the longer people are buried, the worse it is for them. And there's kind of a classic 30 by 30. So we talk about after 30 minutes, the chance of survival is around 30%. However, we're really starting to look at this chart more in this terms. And it's not so much about time, but it's about how do we treat these people during the different stage of the burial. So in the very beginning of the avalanche, when people are first getting buried, when they're being dug up, those people who don't survive are being killed by trauma. There's really not a lot we can do by those people who are being killed initially right away in the avalanche. However, that doesn't mean there can't be some sort of medical condition that eventually gets to them. We're going to have to treat these people medically. This isn't a medical class. You're going to want to take one of those. These people are going to be hurt. The next thing that's getting to them is, well, they're not able to breathe very well under snow. Now, we can pull air in through the snow. There is oxygen in snow, but as we start exhaling, we start melting the snow in front of us. That creates the ice mask. That makes it much harder for us to continue breathing through the snowpack, and that's where we end up in this Triple H stage. What's really interesting, and where things are starting to change, and where our protocols here on Mountain Rescue has changed, is we're starting to discover this side of the graph. And where a lot of this research is coming is people are wearing heart monitors and being caught in avalanches. And those are really sad graphs to look at, right? Way sadder than these ones, where you're looking at their heart throughout the time of the avalanche and the rescue. And so we're starting to understand that as people are buried for long periods of time, they're soaking wet. There's snow everywhere. As you get hypothermic, your metabolic needs decrease. You aren't going to be breathing as quickly. Your heart rate's not going to be running as fast. There are many cases of people surviving very long burials, and that's where things have changed. You know, if you took an avalanche class even 10 years ago, they might have been yelling at you to get it done in 15 minutes. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Probably. We don't do that anymore. And now we're recognizing that depending how long they're buried, they're going to have different needs. So to make it even simpler, they're either buried or not buried. And so tomorrow, we're not really spending a lot of time. We're going to address it. We'll talk about it. But we're not going to go super deep on how do we treat these non-buried people. We're trying to get them not to be buried. We're really focusing on how do we get these people out. And we're going to spend all day on it. So my goal, I just want to give you a quick run through. That's why I asked all of you guys to be here on time, and I really appreciate that. We'll get into the interesting stuff. So what we're going to do tomorrow is we have 3 stations and 6 scenarios. And so what's going to happen is you're going to show up in the morning, you're going to meet at Gondola Plaza at 8:30, and you'll see a guy standing down there. I'll introduce you to, there are 3 group leaders right after coming up soon here. And they'll be standing there with a bunch of these kind of passes hanging around their neck. So you'll know who you're looking for. And you'll come up to him, and he'll have your name on a list. You'll tell him who you are. He'll give you a pass. You go up the gondola, and let's say you're in group 3. You're going to go straight to group first station. First station, you're going to spend your whole time working on pinpointing. Just beacons. And so what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take you guys to the station and say, who's brand new? Who's never used a beacon? Go over here. We'll show you how to use your beacon. Some of you are here for a refresh. So we'll say, great, if you've done this before and you just kind of want to refresh old skills, go over here. If you've been practicing a lot this year and you're feeling on it and you want to learn something new, go over here. So tomorrow's really for you guys. So if you want to learn multiples, speak up. We have that available to you. We're going to teach you some new things with companion rescue. So you'll go to your first station. It's really going to be just beacons and pinpointing. You'll go to the next station, and you're just going to work on shoveling and probing. And we're going to show you a couple different ways to shovel, some strategic shoveling. Then you'll go to the third station, and that's where you'll see a rescue demo. We'll show you what it looks like in real life. We'll give you some more time to practice. We can go kind of button up some odds and ends, and that's kind of a little bit of lunch, and that's our morning. And then you'll go back to the first station you were at in the morning, and that's your first scenario. And we're going to run you through a scenario. And then you'll go to the next station, and you'll do another scenario. And then you'll go to your third station and do another scenario. So you're going to get a lot of practice in tomorrow. And the way we're going to do that when you show up is you're going to get one of these cards. So on one side, it kind of shows you, here's how you do a beacon search. Here's just the quick down and dirty of how to do a beacon search. On the back side is don't do this. This is stuff I see every weekend in my Avalanche classes. Just standard mistakes, it's fine, you're learning. Don't do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to evaluate you based off technique, not time. And then tomorrow night, you come back, and we're going to have a party here tomorrow night with Slow Groove and Barbecue. You can bring your own food if you'd rather have that. If you bring your card, we have a bunch of cool prizes we're going to give away based off of score. Low score wins. All right, so we really want you guys doing a good job, really not concerned that if it's your loved one buried in an avalanche that you'll be moving fast. The real concern is that you'll be missing steps and you'll be blowing the technique. So we really want to focus much more on technique than time. So just a quick, how do we do a beacon search? We're cruising along. We've been making really great decisions with all of our tour planning, and we've seen this other group that's been in an avalanche. First thing I want to do, is this safe? Is it safe for me to continue on and do a beacon search? Next thing I want to know is, well, where was this person last? I can look up and I can see that there's ski tracks coming in to the left flank of the avalanche path. Next thing I want to know is I want to say, you know what? I'm going to need some outside help. This could get bad, and I don't want to figure out what I'm dealing with and then have to go call mountain rescue, and then we have to run down to the cabin, and we have to mobilize. It takes us some time. It's going to be much better for you if you can let us know ahead of time and get us moving. Next thing I want to know is, well, how many people are missing? The way I like to ask this question is, how many beacons are missing? Because it's kind of a two-part question. How many people, and are they wearing beacons? Oh, they're not wearing beacons? They were just sledding on that hill? We'll do a probe line. We're not going to play this beacon game if we're looking for somebody who doesn't have a beacon. So we'll show you probe lines tomorrow. Last step is everybody to search. All right, so I've been teaching these beacons for not that long, probably like 5 to 10 years in that range. And for me, I don't know. I always do numbers and I look at my hand. So I've always done 5 steps. And for me, the most important, everybody safe, thumbs up. The last one, everybody to search, my hand's open, I can put my beacon in it. So I've always taught it that way. At the beginning of this year, one of my Avalanche classes, I had a student who said, I liked acronyms. He came up with a loan. I think it's great, right? It keeps the order, runs us through all the steps, and it keeps it in the right order. The first thing, the most important thing, is this safe. Last step, everybody to search. Because you know what happens if you don't say everybody to search? You start looking for your buddy, right? You go into search, and you're like, oh my God, he's right here. You start pinpointing, I found him. You okay? So we've gone through, we've been ski touring, and we've seen this avalanche. Is it safe? Yes. Last point seen, it looks like it was up there. We'll call outside help. Looks like there's only one ski track coming in, so I think there's only one person missing. Let's everybody go to search. First thing I do, now I move into the run phase of the beacon search, right, or signal search. I like to call it run because that's how you should be moving. I pull out my beacon, I don't have a signal. I'm going to move quick to where I think that person is. Since I don't have a signal with my beacon, I don't need to look at it. It's not telling me anything. So I'm going to listen to it. It's a little bit of an advanced technique, but I'm just going to listen to my beacon, and I'm going to move downhill, and I'm going to teach this sort of pattern as I'm moving down. If I'm by myself, those are search strips. If I have multiple searchers, I can spread out across the hill, and have multiple people coming downhill. Remember to be clue aware. I might see a whole line of skis and hats and poles kind of cruising in a line towards a bunch of trees, right? A big thing we talk about when we're doing beacon search is kind of a mental map. It's not a beacon game. Step away from your beacon. What do you think is happening? I step away and I see a whole bunch of clues going down towards those trees. I don't have a signal, but I think there might be somebody over there. I don't really know, but my mental map tells me to look down by those trees. And I keep cruising down. All of a sudden, I'm listening to my beacon, and it starts beeping. Now I have a signal. Now I've moved from run to walk. In the walk mode, I take my elbow and I pin it to my hip. I hold my beacon super flat. Does anybody in this room have a 1 antenna analog beacon? Or you're not sure if you have a 1 antenna beacon? Don't be embarrassed. You can raise your hand. This is going to be harder for you. So we're going to work with you. We'll switch you out if you're not sure. Most beacons now, and I would suggest if you do have one of those, it's maybe time for an upgrade. This is your life we're talking about. And so with a modern digital beacon, you'll get a number and you'll get a direction. And I'll get my arrows and they'll point this way. And I'll start walking that way. And it's what's called the flux line, which is really just any magnetic line. If anybody have ever seen like a picture of the Earth, the magnetic field, it's kind of that butterfly wing pattern. So it curves. If I'm way out on that flux line, I might start here, and as I'm going, it starts telling me to turn. I'm not going to turn the beacon, I turn my whole body. I'm still in walk mode, I'm far away. My numbers are like 30, maybe they're 20. As I'm walking closer, my numbers I'm slowing down because I'm in walk. I'm not trying to go too fast. I'm trying to do a good job finding this person. So I'm just going to walk, following my numbers, calling them out loud so my teammates know if I'm getting close. They can also help me if I'm going in the wrong direction, right? The beacon doesn't know where the person's buried. It just knows the direction of the flux line. So I might be walking and be like 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and my friend is clued in and he goes, Greg, you're on it, you're just going the wrong direction. Oh, okay. I turn around and I go this way. Now my numbers start going down. Oh, okay, this seems better. This seems a lot better. And I'm coming in, I get closer and closer. As I start getting close, and you can see different numbers in different textbooks, right? Kind of by 10, I'm really thinking that I'm going to start ignoring my arrows, and I'm just looking at numbers. When I see 5, and so just quick aside about these numbers, right? It's calibrated as meters. We often talk about it as meters, but it's really talking about the length of that flux line. And that flux line is curved. So the person could be less than 10 meters away, right? They're not going to be more. It also has something to do with how strong their beacon's transmitting. So we don't really say meters, we just say units, because it's not a very accurate way to measure stuff, right? So if I'm coming in, I see 10 units, I'm getting closer. When I'm at 5, that's when I'm stepping out of my skis or my snowboard or my snowshoes. Snowshoes, you can kind of almost do this in, except you are going to have to get out of your snowshoes to dig. So it's kind of the question. At some point, these snowshoes are coming off. They're either coming off now or they're coming off when it's time to dig. So I'm stepping out of my skis, and now I'm actually crawling. And I'm down on the ground crawling. And so this is always fun for me in the beacon search, and we'll see this tomorrow. You'll see people walking around in their find search like this, trying to do the find search. And you say, well, what stage of the beacon search are you in? I'm in crawl. It looks like you're walking, right? I have a niece. She's not walking like this, right? So we get down on the ground and we're going to crawl. And so when I move from walk to crawl, remember in walk mode, I hold my beacon right like this. I pin my elbow to my hip, and I'm not doing a lot of this. I'm not doing this. I'm just following the line in, following the beacon. Now I've moved to crawl. Imagine right here is the surface of the snow, kind of right at my waist. Now I can move my body, but I don't want to move the orientation of the beacon, right? Maintain one beacon orientation. We'll show you why this is so important tomorrow. But I'm going to go through with one orientation of the beacon, and I'm going to make a cross, looking for that low point. When I've got that low point, I come in there. I've gone through my beacon search. I put my beacon away. If I know I'm only looking for one person, I'm going to put it back in transmit. Remember, rescue or safety. I said the area was safe, but I might be wrong. there could be another avalanche. So before I do anything further with this person, I'm done with my beacon search. I'm gonna make sure that I put my beacon back in transmit. That's one of our common mistakes. I put my beacon back in transmit. Now I start probing, and I use this spiral pattern going out from the beginning about 25 centimeters apart. I get a probe hit, I leave that probe in place, and I start digging. Let me show you guys a quick video about digging.
If a person is actually buried in an avalanche, statistics show you have about 15 minutes after.
Wrong, you have more than that.
Once a victim is located, the hardest part of the rescue begins, digging them out. Avalanche researcher and rescue expert Manuel Genswein has spent his life refining a practice. He calls it the V-shaped snow conveyor belt, and when properly used, it can cut rescue times in half. Now he's sharing it around the world. Step 1. Once there is a probe strike,
Dug them up, let's go skiing. We're gonna have more work, right? We're gonna have more work to do. So I don't wanna beat everybody up, make everybody totally dead, tired, and soaking wet, digging this person up. We're gonna rotate around. I say rotate often. Last things I just kinda wanna run through. It's probably the quickest I've ever run through how to use beacons, but we have all day tomorrow to go through that. And we have a lot of other really interesting lectures going on tonight, so we'll go through that. I want to answer a lot of your logistical questions for tomorrow. Other things to think about. So where do we meet? 8:30 in the morning, Gondola Plaza. You'll be standing there in the morning. You'll come out and you'll be looking for somebody who might look like this guy right here. Why don't you step forward, Peter? Peter, where's Josh? Jim? These three. You want to find one of these three. They'll be standing there. They'll have a whole bunch of these hanging around their neck. They might even have like something they're holding up. You find them. They'll have a card for you. They'll check you off the list. They'll know who's in your group. Some of you don't have ski passes. So to get up, all our event, it's all up on Richmond Ridge. Aspen Ski Company has been very generous and donated foot passes for us. So we have a one-time pass for you. So you're gonna tell Peter, Jim, or Josh, I need a foot pass. They'll give you a lift pass. You're good to go. Next thing you want to think about is what time are we finished? Stations end at 3. You'll be back at the sun deck by 3:30. At that point, you can do whatever you want, right? You don't have to go home, but you're not our responsibility anymore. Our liability ends there. And then we're going to have a party Saturday night, like I said. You guys might have already told them if you want to have dinner, you have not. So come back here. It's going to start at 5:30. Bring your cards. Right? We have a lot of cool prizes to give away. We've had a lot of members running around working really hard to get you guys these prizes. For tomorrow, make sure you bring your own food and water. plenty of that stuff, right? And dress warmly. The forecast is for it to be pretty windy and cold, so maybe some extra layers. And it's not gonna be, you're gonna be walking around doing a lot of beacon search, but you're not gonna be like sending on a big ski tour. So get ready for some of that. Get ready to dress warm, enjoy yourself. Any questions? So we got mics we can pass around if anybody has any questions. I'm still gonna be around. You can catch me later if you have a question. Richie, hold on.
AT gear with skins on, or what are we wearing for skis, or should we have skins on the skis, or?
Yeah, so we like to say train the way you fight. So we got to get used to doing this stuff in skis, doing it in ski gear. If you're a split boarder, getting in and out of your split board. So bring all that gear. There is plenty of snow up there. You're gonna be walking around on snow the whole time. So bring your backcountry touring gear. Be prepared as if it's a normal tour. You don't need to have a huge pack with, I don't know, backup skins or something. It's not Grand Traverse. But yeah, train the way you fight. Gloves, right? If your hands get cold, bring mittens. Bring multiple pairs of gloves because your hands are gonna be in the snow tomorrow. You're going to get wet gloves. So bring some backup gloves for sure. And the forecast is for it to get windy, windier towards the afternoon, so kind of dress warm. Anybody else?
Greg, we figured out the AV stuff, if anybody would like a chair upstairs.
So we have some room upstairs now, so we can spread out, we can stay cozy, however you want. We're gonna take just a couple minutes if there's no more questions, and we'll swap out. You get up, there's bathrooms like Doug said, and then we'll bring on the next presenter, which will be Monty. Bring sunscreen. Peter wants to make sure you guys have lots of sunscreen. No sunburns. Bring food to share, right? Your station leads are gonna be hungry, setting up all these scenarios for you. We can be bribed. We are volunteers, very easily bribed. All right, that's it. So give me a second, we'll pull on Monty.
Awesome. Well, great to see such a big turnout tonight. This is definitely one of the biggest rooms I've spoken to in a while. So kudos to everyone for making time for avalanche awareness in this zone. Very, very important, obviously. And yeah, it's great to be here. I'm definitely honored to be part of a 33-year tradition. This is huge. So kudos to Mountain Rescue Aspen for hosting, and thanks to Greg for inviting me. I'm Monty Luderman. I work for White River National Forest, Aspen-Sopris Ranger District. So forests are divided into ranger districts. This is actually my ranger district here. So yeah, just a huge night. I want to talk a little bit about motorized and mechanized travel. So lots of different ways to experience the forest. Motorized, mechanized being two of them. Like I said, lots of ways. Lots of people ski, lots of people snowboard. You know, motorized is definitely one of the recognized uses for the forest. So I'm going to touch on a few different points. You know, with relation to Avalanche and as well as where to travel. So I guess to get going, does anyone know how big the forest is? White River National Forest as a whole in terms of acres? Is anyone familiar with the size? Any guesses? A couple 100,000 acres maybe?
1.2 million.
Who said that? Good job. So over 2 million acres. We're actually close to 2.3 almost. So I got a skier pin for you when you're done. Good on you. So it's really big. So the Ranger District itself is 400,000 acres. So very, very big area. My point being, there's lots of room. So lots of room for recreation, lots of room for wildlife, lots of room for non-motorized recreation. So just something to keep in mind. You know, it's bigger than most states. It's a very big area. We reach all the way to the Eisenhower Tunnel. We reach, north all the way to the top of the flat tops. So it's a very big zone and lots of different forms of travel, as I said. So a little bit of an overview. National Forest travel management is something I'm going to be touching on. Law enforcement and some of our 2018 field work, I'll touch on that. Emerging issues and opportunities, as well as some of the special concerns for mechanized, motorized recreation with relation to avalanches. We'll also take some questions at the end, so I definitely want to save some time. So don't let me talk to you guys too much. I'll try to move through this. So again, I'm Monty Luderman. I'm a mountain sports ranger. I started with Arapahoe Roosevelt in 1999, and I worked there through 2014. I was part of a regional off-highway management team, and so we traveled all around the state doing motorized recreation, basically. So In 2014, I had the opportunity to come to the Aspen-Sopris Ranger District, and my primary duties are resort operations and development, Ashcroft ski touring, Aspen Mountain powder tours, Braun Hut systems with Morgan. So travel management is part of my duties, but I do a lot of other things as well. I attended University of Wyoming as well as Oregon State University. So I don't know, any Wyoming people in the house tonight, or? Okay. I should expect that, we're a small state. I bet someone went to Oregon State University here, but we'll talk later about that. Anyway, just a little about myself so you guys know who I am. So travel management, so where does it come from? And maybe you guys know about this, so I should say that. There's probably a broad range of experience in this room, so I apologize. If you guys know some of this stuff, it's kind of a 101, so I hope I'm not talking down to anybody. I just really want to just share from the beginning, basically. So travel management plan is a record of decision, which is environmental review that we took on in 2010, 2011. It addresses most likely forms of travel on the forest. So as part of that, we have a motor vehicle use map, which is a requirement of the plan. And Aspen-Sopris actually took on summer and winter, where most ranger districts only have one MVUM. So we have enough summer and winter travel differences that we've actually taken on a plan for both. So that's kind of a unique thing. And actually, out in the lobby, I have copies of winter travel management maps for everybody. They're free. They're available at every ranger district nationwide for free as part of that travel management plan. So winter season is roughly November 23rd through May 2nd, and summer is May through November 22nd. That can change depending on conditions. Authorized officer can allow longer or shorter seasons, depending on snow condition, basically. So it displays areas where visitors are able to use motor vehicles and where they're not. It's kind of an important thing, obviously. They're site-specific. They don't address mechanized recreation, and I'll talk a little bit about mechanized tonight. A lot of this talk is going to be focused kind of on motorized. So do we have some motorized users in the room? Is there anyone that enjoys snowmobiling here? Or okay, good. Good, yeah, I snowmobile myself. So great form of travel and definitely something we want to touch on. So if you're a mechanized user, if you're kind of non-motorized user, you're going to want to look for our visitor use map. And these are actually for sale. We don't give these away, but come see us at the ranger station. It has the whole forest. So that really, these are more dynamic is what I would say. The motorized maps are basically just related to roads, trails where motor vehicles are allowed. So I like the transitions. I was playing with that. I hope you guys like it. So the MVUM is updated as needed to correct errors and discrepancies. The most recent versions are available at the Ranger District, as I said, and also on the Forest web pages. So please look into it. Please come see us if you want a free map. Again, they're free in the lobby right here tonight. So they might not always be signed. The second bullet there basically says, it's your responsibility to know where to travel. And so I think the saying is, ignorance of the law does not give you free rein to not get a ticket. So you really do need to know where to go. That's why the map is so important. That's actually why it's free. We really want people to have that tool, pay attention to it, use it. We do our best to sign routes. I'll touch on some of that in the 2018 work. We really do. And a lot of our partners help us with that. But it's hard, and there's a lot of different zones that we just don't get to often enough to have current signage everywhere. So it's your responsibility to know where to travel. And we take on the education component pretty heavy, as opposed to just writing tickets immediately. We like to give people a map, give them the chance to respond appropriately and travel in the right places. So we have that authority, and I'll touch on that as well, but it is really an education thing. Also, this website here has some frequently asked questions if you guys want to get a little bit deeper into the travel management. So Code of Federal Regulations, CFR as we call them, that gives us the authority to manage travel. It gives us the authority to issue tickets if we need to. So we have a local law enforcement officer here on the district, Christopher Mandrick. I don't know if some of you may know him even. So he's a primary duty officer for Aspen-Sopris. He also covers Eagle Holy Cross Ranger District, our friends in the Vail Zone. So he's a fairly busy gentleman, I would say, and we keep him fairly busy. So the Forest Service also has something called a Forest Protection Officer, and so that's an FPO. They're a level 2 law enforcement officer, so they have the authority to write tickets. They don't carry guns. We don't have arresting authority. But we do travel management, and we do enforcement. So Eric Tierney is a gentleman here in the Valley that's been helping me out this winter. Some of you may know. And yeah, we're partnered up this winter, and we're out doing enforcement, basically. So anyway, if you guys see us in the field, please say hi, as well as Chris. So he's out quite a bit as well. Just a little bit about regulation and fines. So, it's kind of like avalanches. Like avoidance is the best thing. What I say is I want compliance. I don't want to give out, fines for everything. What we really want is respect. So this just kind of shows the fine schedule, though, just so you guys know. I mean, there is, monetary forfeiture, basically, if you get in trouble. So, we have a lot of travel restricted areas where you may see like a $250 fine if you're off a designated route, for instance. Wilderness areas we take very seriously. As you can see the third bullet down there, $500 fine. So we do hand that out from time to time. Basically every year since I've been here, we've had motorized, mechanized incursions in our wilderness areas. So we do take that very seriously. You can see it's a high fine. And then, the last one I like to touch on is the registration of machines. And I'm really glad that came up about the search and rescue, whoever had that question. So, a season pass for snowmobiling is $30.25. So to me, that sounds pretty good. And the 25 cents, my understanding is that covers a pot of money that helps with search and rescue. So it's a great thing to have. The Ranger District actually can apply for grants, and so we can get motorized money from the state of Colorado for trail management for winter and summer. So, the fine is $100. Again, I would much rather people just go buy the $30 registration, be covered for search and rescue, and then I have the opportunity to write grants and get some of that money back. If we write these tickets, honestly, it goes to Washington, D.C., and the Ranger District doesn't really see anything. So compliance is really what we're looking for on this stuff, not to hand out fines. So just to touch a little bit on the 17-18 field work, it has been a thin season as far as snow goes, so we're off to a little bit of a slow start. This is actually Richmond Ridge, where you guys are heading up tomorrow. A lot of you might recognize it. Aspen Mountain is nice enough to let me keep some of my snow wands right at the top. But we have a designated route that runs all along Richmond Ridge, and you're required to stay on that route until you get into specific areas where you are able to ride off trail. So we mark that route, and that's part of the education process. I can't expect people to be on a designated route that isn't marked. So we get out. Normally I have this done by Christmas. I had to wait an extra week or so this year just to be able to stick snow wands in the ground and have them stay. So this is something we do every year. Nothing new to some of you. I'm sure you've seen it. New signs and maps are available at Richmond Ridge. So, when I first started working down here, we have what I would describe as dynamic travel management. And there wasn't a lot of information available. So this kiosk here, it had summer travel management on it, nothing for winter. So a lot of the folks I see are, winter travelers up there. So I really felt like we needed to display that information. So I just had that new panel made this year. These are Right in the Rain maps, or they're printed on Right in the Rain paper, excuse me. So that kind of shows the travel zones specifically for Richmond Ridge. Again, this is one of our focus areas, so I do spend a lot of time up there. But we want that available to the public. I also put motor vehicle use maps in this box as well. So, phones don't work really good on Richmond Ridge, so it's nice to download all the information ahead of time if you can. If you don't do that, you can basically grab a map right there at the kiosk. The other thing a lot of people do is just take a picture of the map, which is great and totally paperless. So we like that as well. So field observations and monitoring. There was a small slide. This is in Aspen Mountain Powder Tours permit area on Cardiac Ridge. So, I am able to observe quite a bit while we're out there. We travel, extensively on Richmond. And, I try to file those reports with CAIC if Blaze hasn't been to that zone yet or to that incident yet. We try to cover that. This one was very close, and so I didn't have to do a report on that. Expired registration, like I said, I'm really big on people having registration. So this machine was on what I call the 5-year program. And so what this tells me is he knows, or they know they're supposed to have it because they bought it before, and but just maybe not as frequently as they should have. Again, $30, you know, so if you are a motorized traveler, I very much encourage you to have it. That way I can give you a wave, and it isn't like, hey, come talk to me. What's going on, you know? New machines, they give you a pink tag, and I ask you to carry that as well. So anyway, expired registration, I see it all the time. So we work with Aspen Mountain Powder Tours. They have actually a travel restricted area for public motorized travel. And it's going to be in the zone you guys are at, just on the east side of Richmond Ridge tomorrow, the U.S. Forest Service section anyway. And so, yeah, we check in with their groups, make sure everything's going well with them. I occasionally ski with them, not often enough. And so, Greg, wherever you are, we'll be seeing you soon. And, you know, we also, so I said a public motorized closure. So Aspen Mountain Powder Tours actually has a permit to operate their cat skiing free of public motorized use. And that doesn't mean the public doesn't get in there. So you can see on the right here, high marking. So this is the same ridge, Cardiac Ridge, you know, high marked up, definitely affecting the ski product. And so it's illegal. It's hard to kind of catch people in there all the time. I do cruise through there because for administration use we can. But yeah, just some of the issues we deal with at Aspen Mountain Powder Tours, just letting you guys know. So areas, opportunities, and issues. And yeah, so I like to use that word opportunities. There's a lot of opportunity on this district. We also have 5 wilderness areas. So who can name all 5? Go ahead.
Maroon Bells, or Snowmass, Hunter Crimes, Hand, Collegiate, Raggeds, and Holy Cross.
Got it. You got it. Okay, good job. So those are all travel restricted areas. No motorized, no mechanized. We're very serious about that. Like I said, we write tickets for it every year. So, you know, 5 travel restricted areas just talking about wilderness. So, you know, there is a lot of opportunity. There also is a lot of land on this district set aside for non-motorized, non-mechanized use, which is great. So some of the things we're up against, though, are mixed ownership, jurisdiction, administration. So the south end of the district borders Gunnison National Forest. So different forest, different regulations. So you got to kind of be cognizant of where you're crossing zones as well. Like I said, it's your responsibility to know. We do our best with signs, but you know, as you get into Gunnison, it actually is more open for motorized. So it's important to know where you are and respond accordingly. Private land is another issue. It's part of the reason we have a designated route down Richmond Ridge. We have a lot of private land. We want to make sure to keep that route open. So, you know, it's basically the private landowner's job to sign their property, you know, no trespassing, et cetera. But we also just ask people to be very, very respectful and not travel on private land, especially motorized, mechanized, if you can avoid it, especially if you know about it. So again, dynamic regulations, motor vehicle use map is very handy for that. Visitor use map is very, very handy to know where you're going. Using a compass, being able to use a map, it's just good stuff to know. You know, storms move in, you got to be able to do that. You can't rely on your phones in a lot of these zones. So just something to think about. So opportunities. So, you know, we have 5 wilderness areas, right? Maybe a lot of folks think we're not a very open motorized district. Well, we've got 120 miles between here and Powderhorn. Has anyone ridden that trail? Okay. So really, really long. I mean, that's for a motorized trail, that's extremely long. A lot of it's groomed, which is great. So in 180 miles of associated trails, I believe that a lot of that is on Grand Mesa. Richmond Ridge open area. So if you ride far enough on Richmond Ridge, you actually reach a motorized play zone around the Barnard Hut, basically, where you can ride off trail. And so it's a little ways down there. You got to know where it is. It's pretty clear, I guess, when you get there, especially if you have experience with the area. But big open meadow. This picture's from last week. So it's coming around, you know. We don't have a ton of snow. You can definitely damage your equipment if you get playing too much. But it's a great little zone. It's a cool little play area, you know, and it does border, you know, Gunnison National Forest. So if you keep heading south, there's even more opportunity. Basalt Mountain, some of you are familiar with that outside of Elgibel. Some open motorized winter travel there as well. Maroon Creek Road and Independence Pass Road are designated routes. So basically you have to stay on the road. But those are great opportunities, you guys. I just went up Independence Pass yesterday, and it's just beautiful. I mean, snowmobiling, skiing, bike riding, whatever you want to do, it's just a great zone to head into. Kobe Park is one of our big open motorized areas. You see a little asterisk next to it. We have some challenges with parking for that zone right now, and it is one of our bigger open motorized areas. So stay tuned on that. We're hoping for some resolve eventually. So issues, new and emerging forms of winter travel. So this is why I got into recreation, you guys. I love how it always changes. It's just sometimes it's hard for the agency to keep up with everything. Sometimes it's hard for me, even personally to keep up with everything. So, fat tire bicycles, converted ATVs, UTVs, dirt bikes, SUVs. I had a welcome to Aspen moment a few years ago. I was going up Little Annie Road, and there was like a really, really nice Yukon, not a speck of dirt on this thing. And it was on tracks. And so, we are seeing, everyone really wants to travel in a lot of different ways, which I think is great. It's just, sometimes it's a little bit hard to keep up with. And so, this is a quote from our travel management plan. And so, over the snow vehicles are defined for uses over the snow, and they run on tracks or skis. So, tracks, skis, a lot of these things meet that. Any other vehicle for winter use, including wheeled vehicles, full-size vehicles, all-terrain vehicles, motorcycles, mountain bikes, mechanized vehicles are prohibited unless on a plowed or maintained road. So this is something that you may see change over the years. Fat tire bikes, for instance, Maroon Creek Road. I talked to this gentleman, he rides almost every day, he said. That's not a plowed route. So what we're entertaining now is we'd like to see a proposal for basically everywhere. IMBA would like to see fat tire bicycles. And so we want to see a batch proposal that Maroon Creek Road, Independence Pass, wherever it is, that we can consider for amending our travel management plan. So it's interesting. The machine on the left there is a rental in the Vail Valley. So, they have full right to rent that. Is it designed for over the snow use? It sure looks like it. It's got tracks, it's got skis. So it just kind of showing you guys what we're up against here. It is changing. I am seeing a lot of tracks from, the dirt bikes that have been converted, converted UTVs. We have some right here in the shop. They're great. You can travel over mud. You can travel over snow, sand, all that stuff. So we are seeing these. A couple of years ago, I want to say there was one or two. I counted no less than 4 last time I was out the other day. So they are emerging. They are extremely useful. They are buying registration. So, I think they're cool. We're trying to wrap our head around them. And, the third point up there is just the result of the tracks left behind is kind of one of the things. This picture doesn't show it very well. But, fat tire bikes leave a different kind of track. And so if we put them on, groomed cross-country trails, it can change things a little bit. So temperatures are really important. Howison Hill and Steamboat is designating some, fat tire bike trails specifically. As it gets really warm, maybe closing trails to fat tire bikes is an option. So anyway, just kind of showing you guys what we're up against. Nothing you haven't seen, I'm sure. So issues continued. Let's see, Little Annie Road, full-size vehicles off the road. This is from last week as well. So low snowpack years are a big challenge for us. A lot of our roads we like to push shut with a big snow berm. It's hey, okay, no more cars, no more wheeled vehicles. And we are having some trouble with that this year with no snow. So this is actually, on the county road, and hopefully this Tacoma got some help. Snowcats. I get occasional calls about snowcats. And this was actually Little Annie as well. And so it's not illegal to operate snowcats. You can definitely do that. It's just on groomed trails. Again, the tracks, we are concerned about, if someone spends a bunch of money grooming a trail, we don't need a snowcat erasing all of that. So the travel management plan actually addresses this specifically, and if you are on groomed trails, you have to be grooming behind you. Or you can travel off of groomed trails in certain zones like the Kobe Park area. 4 Mile Park area is a great opportunity for this. So anyway, a couple other uses there. Incursions by motorized and mechanized travel around huts. So we did issue a ticket earlier this year. I guess it was right after Thanksgiving. We had an incursion in the Lindley area, up top of Castle Creek area. And, Braun Hut System's done a really good job with their signs. So here's an example from the Pearl Pass area, actually. It's just the kind of thing that, people want to drive right into the hut. And that's not something we're looking for, honestly. And so we had a gentleman that traveled into Lindley, right to the hut, and we were able to establish probable cause to issue a ticket, even after the fact. So, you know, what I like to say is, you know, you got to represent yourself really well, even when people aren't looking. It's kind of a character judgment, because I'm not everywhere. You're not going to see a ton of green coats, honestly. It's kind of how you represent yourself when no one's looking. So the sign's there. Do people pay attention to it? Usually they do. So compliance is fairly high. You know, part of the reason I want to give this talk is to really up that compliance level and get less calls, basically. So Avalanche issues related to motorized recreation. Since this is an Avalanche class, you know, I did want to touch on a few of these things. So amount of exposure, so travel distance can be a major difference between motorized and non-motorized. So yesterday, you know, I covered 15 miles in about less than an hour on snowmobile. So, you know, you can be way out into the backcountry very quickly. And so your exposure rate is different. You can be on top of, you know, cornices in 5 minutes on Jones Pass. So you got to be really careful, because your exposure rate, I think, is different. Deeper disruption of layers, heavier equipment can create issues with unstable snowpacks, as well as the noise, so a little bit of vibration there. High marking, you know, that's kind of something that a lot of snowmobilers enjoy, as well as myself. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. You're kind of cookie cuttering, you know, on the wrong slope. That can be really bad. You're also descending and ascending as many times as you want. So I think your exposure rate is a lot different on motorized, mechanized equipment. And also just your ability, this actually goes for motorized and non-motorized, you can be in the middle of nowhere very quickly. So your friction of distance for assisted rescue can be much, much different. So what is the take-home point? So responsible recreation. So here's the boss. Scott Fitzwilliams is on the right there. I guess your left. And so this is a sign I had made for Gwen's High Alpine, the new restaurant at Snowmass a couple years ago. So really the message that I want to get out there is not just recreation, but responsible recreation. Again, like, what are you doing when no one's looking? So explore and respect is kind of the message I'd like everyone to kind of think about tonight. Non-motorized, motorized, everybody. So anyway, kind of a fun thing that we had up at Gwen's. So probably almost out of time. Sorry, I'm so long-winded. Any questions? Please.
What program did you use?
PowerPoint. Yeah. I was trying not to bore you guys to death, so the transitions hopefully helped. Anything with relation to motorized travel? Go ahead.
I actually was having a discussion with someone who did recently get a ticket, I think from you,
Okay.
on Richmond Ridge.
Is he here?
No, they're not here,
Okay,
and
good.
they knew better.
Okay, good.
And I just, you know, for me, they were like, oh, well, what difference does it make? You know, it's on snow, it's a snowmobile.
Yep.
I don't get what.
Good
and
question.
I know how to answer that question, but I just thought I'd ask how you answered that question.
Yeah, so we get that a lot, especially with wilderness areas. I mean, yeah, you're traveling over the snow in wilderness. I understand that question. I definitely do. So noise is a very big component. So, you know, our wilderness areas are really, some of them are wildlife sanctuaries as well. And maybe one of these years we could talk more about wildlife issues. That was something Greg was actually looking for tonight. And I just don't have that expertise. But so noise is a huge factor. Primitive use. So, you know, there's been some headlines lately about, you know, opening up wilderness areas to mountain bikes and stuff. So it's really, it's the primitive use thing that's a huge component of wilderness. It's not just non-motorized, or it's not just, non-motorized, non-mechanized. It's primitive. And so, yeah, the noise, the non-primitive travel, you know, the potential impacts to wildlife, you know, the tracks left behind for, say, your non-motorized user, you know, they don't want to be necessarily following snowmobile tracks into the wilderness when it's kind of fun to cut your own track sometime, you know, and get that extra exercise. So, yeah, the way I'd answer that is just, yeah, it's the noise, it's the non-primitive travel. It's well established in the wilderness mandate that we're not going to allow a lot of that stuff. So that's how I'd answer it. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time.
So this is Blaze Reardon. Ow! Let's put it together for Blaze Reardon. The man, the myth, the legend. You probably thought he was just a guy who sat somewhere in his office typing away, but he's a real life human. Or superhero, real life superhero. Here he is in the flesh. He's going to tell us about the CAIC. He's been our local forecaster here for 5 years.
My 5th winter.
It's his 5th winter being here. For those of you who don't know about the CAIC, you should get to know it. He'll tell you more about it. There's a crew of the office forecasters who work in Boulder. There's a crew of backcountry forecasters like Blaze, and then there's a crew of guys who just do forecasts for the highways. So all our plow drivers get to stay safe and know when to plow and when not to plow. Take it away, Blaze. He knows everything.
No pressure. Hi, you guys. Welcome. I want to talk a little bit first. I'm going to do 2 things tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about the CIC and resources that you can get from the CIC.
We have a webcast.
I don't like this thing. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the CIC and the resources we offer people that want to recreate in the backcountry and even those that aren't wanting to get into the backcountry. And then I want to talk a little bit about accident history in the Aspen Zone fatalities because I think it's educational. The Colorado Avalanche Information Center is part of the Division of Natural Resources in the state of Colorado. So is Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and a few other things. And our mission is to improve avalanche forecasting, science, and education to save people, property, and the economy in Colorado. So winter economy in Colorado is a pretty big deal, and that takes a lot of passes and everything else. Winter recreation, backcountry recreation in Colorado is also a big deal. And so the CIC's been in existence since the late 70s, I think. I can't remember exactly. In some form or other. It's gone through a couple different iterations as it's moved around. Basically, at this point, there's 20 forecasters that work for the CIC. There are 4 public backcountry forecaster offices, 2 forecasters located in Leadville that each cover 2 of the 10 zones. Me here in Carbondale cover 2 zones, and then a forecaster in the San Juans. We also have forecasters in Boulder, and then a whole series of forecasters that deal with the highway passes. You guys probably will never see them. CDOT does not do their own forecasting. We do the forecasting. And so our employees are the ones that you'll see working with those guys. Probably the easiest way to get information from the CIC is the website, though we also have a new app, which is really the bomb. It's this thing right here. You can download it. Look up Colorado Avalanche on the App Store or whatever Google's thing is. It's sponsored by the North Face. And basically, it'll recreate what's going on, and you can just go right to it. You don't even have to click on a website. You can look on your phone at any point. It's been pretty effective. So I would highly recommend that if you're going to be going into the backcountry at all, that's a great way to keep up to date. You can also get your forecast emailed to you every morning if you create an account and give us your email address. And we also tweet and do other things. So there's a lot of ways you can get our products. The heart of the products is every day we put out from pretty much mid-November to mid-April, sometimes later. We put out 10 zone forecasts a day. Right now, the state of Colorado is yellow, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. We put out 10 zone forecasts a day, so depending on where you're going or want to go, you can get the information that's relevant to that particular place. The zones are kind of big because it's a big state, and 20 forecasters isn't even enough. But they're pretty good in terms of getting you site-specific information. I'll go through how they're set up in a second. Some other resources on the website here. You can get weather forecasts, and if you really want to geek out, you can get model forecasts. You can get observations, and I'll talk about this in a little bit. There's education lists of classes and things like that. And if you want to dig into accidents, it's here. I'm going to go to the Aspen Zone forecast for right now. There we go. So you can mouse over that map, and it'll just give you a brief thing. But you get, on our zone forecast, you'll get the forecast for today and for tomorrow, okay, the trend for tomorrow. And there are 3 elevation bands. And a couple colors is the first thing that you're going to come up with. Basically, you want to use this to find out 2 things on a given day. where it's okay to play and where it's no way. All right? And every forecast will pretty much tell you something about the kind of terrain where you're most likely to get into trouble and the kind of terrain where you're not. Some days, one of those pies is a whole lot bigger than the other pie. Low, the places you could get into trouble are really little, small, few. And at high, pretty much everything is going to get you into trouble. So you can look at that. That's quick and easy. A lot of people think that moderate means everything is good to go, but moderate means you can trigger large avalanches that will kill you. All right? There's a real misconception about this. You may not see natural avalanches, but you can trigger big slides that will really hurt you. Do not underestimate moderate. Most avalanche fatalities happen at moderate or considerable. There's always a summary right there that'll pretty much describe what's going on and where and why it's happening. I'm not going to read this whole thing. You guys can read it. But that's in there every day. There's some sort of description of what the problem is. And down below are, well, our tweets, if you want to see those. And then a set of icons. The icon on your left says what the avalanche problem is. Avalanches are not created equal. Think about the difference between cats, bobcats, lions, tigers, and saber-toothed tigers. All right? It's okay to run into a kitty cat. You may be a bobcat. But after that, it gets to be a problem. And so those are telling you something about what you're running into, right? The second icon, imagine looking down on the top of a perfect cone mountain, like Mount Fuji. Those are your elevation bands, and the grayed out area tells you where you're likely to find the problem. The next icon tells you how likely it is a person is going to trigger a slide, and then the last one tells you the size. These are really useful. We put a lot of time and effort into trying to get these right every morning. So you can use these to help you figure out what's going on. Today, you could trigger small to large avalanches on shaded slopes at most elevations. And the problem is persistent slab avalanches. The idea that not just because a storm hasn't happened in a week doesn't mean you're not going to have a slide. And we like media. We got pictures. There's some pictures of crowns and large slide that was skier triggered by some folks in Marble unintentionally on Tuesday. A very large slide, actually. It was 500 feet wide. Anywhere you see that little eye, you just put your little cursor on that. And it'll tell you everything you need to know, like what's the distribution, what's an avalanche problem. And so you can click on it, it'll give you all the help you want. I would highly recommend, there's a lot of time and thought that goes into this. There's a lot of information here. You don't really need that much more information to keep yourself safe in the backcountry. Right? This is a very useful set of products and services. Comes out every day by about 7:30, if not earlier. And there you go. Should you, however, be one of those information geeks that likes to go into the wormhole, you can click. Forecast discussion is a much more in-depth, usually explanation of why the danger is what it is, or the problem is, or variations. The Crystal River's got a lot more of this issue going on than the frying pan or something like that. Maybe something about elevation bands, whatever. Forecast discussion also comes out by about 8, and there's usually a bunch more pictures. This is a slide that was triggered at the base of Bell Mountain the other day by a ski patroller. Really low elevation, carried him 15 feet. Nasty place to take a ride. And then the weak layer that's been the problem for a lot of the slides right there on a crystal card. You can also go and see all the avalanches that have been. This has got a pretty short list right now. The avalanche observations we've gotten, or the general field reports. Learning to do this backhanded. This is good. New skill every day. And weather observations. These are a lot of the weather stations across the zone. You can get to a lot more. There's plenty of information here for you to waste a lot of time on your boss's nickel. All right? But get a lot smarter and make it so nobody has to come dig you out. All right. Any questions on the website or any of this kind of stuff? There's a lot more information there, but it's kind of the basics. Anybody have any questions or concerns, comments? Yes.
Is there a way for us to report if we've seen or even triggered a small avalanche?
Oh my God, this guy's not even a plant. There's a blue button right up here, right next to the gray button. All right? And you click on that. And you can tell us all kinds of things if it ever loads here. Basically, I do not need nor do I want a lot of technical information from anybody. What I want is what you saw, where you were, what you did, and what you didn't do. If you have a photo and you see a slide, you should send me the photo. Basically, if you see an avalanche, your reaction should be like this. Phone, picture, all right? I can usually figure out where it is, elevation, aspect, all that from a picture, and I'm happy to do that. But if I don't have a picture, it's hard for me to guess a lot of things. People that get scared will say, it was huge. Other people are like, it was tiny and it's huge. I would love it if you guys would fill this out. You don't have to use your name. You can. If you want to stay anonymous, you'll just show up as public. I'll show you how that works in a second. Somebody signed in as Midnight Grizzly the other day. That's fine with me. His information was accurate. That's all I care about. You can enter if you saw any avalanches, triggered anyone caught. This is really important for us because if I'm putting out a forecast and I have no reports of triggered slides for 4 or 5 days, I'm going to be trending the danger a certain way. And there's other information that goes into that. But if somebody's like, oh yeah, we triggered a slide 2 days ago, it's like, great, that would have helped me out a lot. So it's really important to know this. Likewise, if the danger's changing other ways or whatever. So sometimes like, yeah, we went out, we didn't see anything. That was fine. You can tell us the date, the zone, some sort of description. This doesn't have to be real detailed. You should be able to do this on your phone in the car. And that's all we really need. And if you have any pictures, you just add them right there. Okay? All right? If you have a video, if it's YouTube, just take the S off. HTTPS, take the S off, and it'll load fine. Put save, and you won't see anything right away because I'm going to review every observation that's submitted, and then I'll approve it. So if you do it and you don't see anything on the site, don't freak out. I'll get to it. I'll show you what this page looks like in just a second here. So if you want to see what people are seeing, you can click on that field reports, and you'll get this. Well, you can get it as a map or a table. I prefer the table. It's going to come up as a map. There we go. And this is why. This is a list of the last 3 days. Well, some of the last 3 days. Different zones, different locations. If you see public, that means the person they wanted to be anonymous. A lot of those are forecasters. We always put our obs in at the end of every day. And so we can look at, for instance, this one. Somebody was up at the Peter Eston Hut, took the Iron Edge Trail up, little brief thing, and then they had a lot of woofing and collapsing on all elevations on even 25-degree slopes, widespread surface wear. Great information for me. I'm seeing surface wear everywhere. I haven't been to the Peter Eston Hut in a little while, so now I know. And then they saw a slide on a north aspect, 11,800 feet. It was old, all right? Great, super simple. They were probably somewhere between Eagle and Vail by the time they were done with that, okay? So that's great, super useful for me. So yes, thank you, plant. It wasn't a plant. Any other questions? Yes.
Can we see historical information so we can get a kind of a trend for what's been happening versus just that day's report?
2 days report there, Chief. So if you click here, you're going to get your forecast. It shows up. There's a 5-day trend on the forecast discussion. There isn't much of a trend right now. But there's a 5-day trend on the forecast. You can also scroll down a little farther on the discussion. Actually, the easiest way to do it is here. Pick your year, pick your date, and you can get the archived version right there. Okay. If you want the forecast discussion for that day, you kind of have to do the same thing on the forecast discussion. But you can get all the products back that you want. Great question. Anything else? Other folks? There's a wormhole here. I'm going to take you to the model point forecasts, the cross sections if you're not careful. Vertical velocity, yeah. Okay. Other questions about the website or anything we do? You don't get into trouble if you trigger a slide, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think on average, the CAIC gets about 60 to 70 reports of avalanche incidents a year. We know there's more than that. It's really hard to track, but we know there's more than that. But that's an incident which somebody's caught and carried in the debris. We got 9 full burials last year. Of those, only 1 person was killed. That's a lot to do with luck. There were close calls, near misses that could have easily gone the other way. There was a couple in this zone that could have easily been fatalities. And likewise, that fatality, had a few things gone differently, we might have been the first year without an avalanche fatality in Colorado in God knows how long. There's an average about 5 to 6 fatalities a year in Colorado. So last year was pretty low. Oh, that's a yeah. The question was, would I talk about this year's snowpack? Yes, after I do my other presentation, because it's a can of worms. All right. Any other questions? I'm happy to do that, but I want to talk about some other things first. Okay. I'm going to talk about some grim things here, and this is why I'm here and why hopefully all of you are here to avoid being in this slideshow in a future year. I'm going to look basically at patterns and common themes for avalanche fatalities, and there's one big reason for that, and fatal accidents are our best documented accidents. We don't have complete data about close calls, near misses, or anything like that. So it's real hard to talk about things meaningfully. Also, fatalities are the biggest consequences, so we might want to learn something about them and help ourselves to recognize some dangerous situations. The one thing I would tell you is that I'm asking you to stop underestimating certain things and pay more attention to things that you probably wouldn't. So this is a graph of roughly a bar graph of the last 2 decades of fatal avalanche accidents in the Aspen zone. That's not just Pitkin County. It includes parts of Gunnison and Garfield County as well, and Eagle County, actually. But basically the Aspen zone. So west side of Independence Pass to McClure Pass, basically. And we can see there have been 20 fatalities over 2 decades in 18 accidents. In other words, we had a couple multi-fatality accidents, and we average about 1 fatal accident a year in the Aspen zone, which makes them all 2 regular occurrences. And if you were to look at the total of avalanche fatalities by county in the state of Colorado, Pitkin County has the highest. So some common features of these accidents. Most of them involve skiers. I know, skiers like to make fun of snowboarders. You can get them back now. It's mostly skiers. It's mostly men. Most of the avalanches involve soft slabs, all right? In other words, the debris does not leave big hard chunks. And most of them break on old snow or near the ground, 90% of them. They're not involving storm slabs or wind slabs necessarily. If we look at them over the season on months, most of them are more, we have most accidents later in the season. I don't even have May in here, and actually we've haven't had a fatal accident in May. We have a lot of close calls in May. And there's a couple reasons for that. I think one of them is familiarity and just sort of people feeling like, yeah, I got this dialed by February or March, when maybe they don't. And then the other, I think, is this old saw that you'll hear from people that it's always safer to wait till springtime or later in the season to ski things in Colorado. And that's just plain not true. One of them is fatalities and one of them is accidents, because we have multi-fatality accidents. Good question, thank you, Kendall. I broke these out by activity, and I want to define these classes before I go any further. A hut involves a party that's on a multi-day trip, access the slope from the bottom. And the reason I think this is important is because when people are in huts, they're making decisions on less information and differently than people on day trips. Ski area occurred within the boundaries of an open ski area. Backcountry is a slope that's accessed from the bottom. I don't care whether it's on skis, foot, snowmobile, doesn't really matter to me. And a side country slope, which is not a term that bothers me, is a slope that's accessed from the top down by somebody who's leaving a ski area boundary. Again, I think people make decisions differently and have different levels of information in this case. This is not the Aspen Zone, that's actually Utah. It's a great picture though. And we can see that people aren't killed on roads or in buildings here in the last 2 decades. We have had a couple fatalities at huts. Ski areas, we've had 3. And backcountry, we've had about 3 or 4. And the side country, we've had 12 fatalities. Okay. It's a disproportionately large percentage of fatalities in this zone. Nationally, avalanche fatalities involving people who leave ski area boundaries about 15%. In Colorado as a whole, it's a little over 20%. In the Aspen Zone, it's close to 60%. All right. There's easy access from the ski areas here. We have very low elevation trailheads. The highest trailhead in this zone is 9,400 feet at Ashcroft. You can drive to above where the cat will drop you off at Highlands Ridge on Loveland Pass. All right. We have a very different situation than a lot of other backcountry areas in Colorado. And so it's easy to access upper elevation terrain from the ski areas. And then my guess is people also underestimate the danger. If we look at group size, again, this red and blue is differences between accidents and side country accidents here. In general, solo skiers or large groups tend to be involved in avalanche accidents. Solo skiers will tell you over and over that they make safer decisions than people in groups because they don't have peer pressure. But this graph tells me that they're wrong. If we look at elevation, all the accidents here happen below 12,500 feet. So the top of Highlands Bowl is about 12,500 feet, a little under. The average elevation is 10,750 feet. That's below the summit of Marble Peak. That's well below the summit of Richmond Ridge. It's not much higher than the summit of Buttermilk. All right. So these accidents are not happening up high in the big, white, obvious avalanche paths. This one's a little tougher. It's a scattered plot. Blue is the R size, or the avalanche size, relative to the path. In other words, a small path, but a big slide in a small path is going to get a higher number than a small slide in a big path, even though they might be the same size. And then the D scale is an absolute scale. It's the way we look at things, so we can kind of tell the difference. Most people are dying in large slides, not very large slides, but large slides, D2+. And most slides are large relative to the path. In other words, small paths producing large slides. And if we look at it by aspect, north is to the top in this. The blue is the color, the number of fatalities. All of the fatalities are occurring on shady slopes in this zone. Snow quality is better on shady slopes, but persistent weak layers last a lot longer. And they're also generally occurring on windward terrain and not on leeward terrain. They don't happen to occur mostly on north because we don't have a lot of due north terrain in this zone. The ridges run north-south, and so we tend to have northeast, northwest, east, west. Raspberry Ridge, Highlands Ridge, Richmond Ridge all run due north-south. We don't have a lot of due north terrain. So a couple takeaways. People are not dying in the high peaks here. None of these accidents involve 14ers, all right? They're not happening on sunny slopes. They're not happening in the early season. And they're not large destructive slides, and they're not the image we have of avalanche fatalities. So it's now mid-January. We have a shallow snowpack, all right? Most people are not going to go up high right now. They're going to be playing around in below tree line and near tree line terrain, and a lot of people are going to be skiing out of the ski areas because it's really hard to get to snow from the valley bottoms right now, which means that there's a lot of people who are going to fit the profile of one of these fatalities. So some influences of all this is access and proximity, familiarity. Scarcity is a big one this year, and people don't perceive as danger. All the photos in this are from fatalities in this zone, the accident scene. So we can see small gullies like this. Peter Barker, the site of multiple fatalities and multiple avalanche accidents with injuries. That's the top of Ruthie's Lift right there, right? Can't ask for a better definition of fatal side country right there. So dangerous watch out situations. You're in the side country. You're below tree line, like this one. You're on a windward slope, like this one. You're a guy alone or in a small group or a large group with your buddies. You're in a gully. Okay? If firefighters know what are called watch out situations, this is what you should be considering a watch out situation. If you find yourself in one of these, you might want to be thinking very carefully about the conditions, your group dynamics, or whatever. Great days, a lot of times to ski this terrain or ride this terrain on your snowboard, but this is where and when accidents are happening. Fatal accidents have happened in the Aspen Zone in the last 2 decades. Oh yeah, and considerable danger. I mean it when I say it's considerable, all right? It's not a reflex. Oh, I'm going to raise it to orange because it snowed. I mean it. If I call it high, I want you to hide under your bed. I'm serious. You don't want this. Small avalanche, large crown, fatality. And there's things I'd like to look at some more on these, but I don't have time to talk about it right now. So, any questions on these fatal avalanche accidents in the Aspen Zone? All right, don't make next year's slideshow. Do you want me to talk about the season or you want to wait? So anybody want to tell me some dominant features about the season right now, snowpack? Things that you guys, facets, thank you, Kendall. Yes, facets. Shallow, right? What else? Many weak layers. So there's a couple things that are going on. This is probably the driest season in 41 years, so you can count yourself lucky as experiencing a 1 in 40 year event. Yeah, no, this is the driest year in about 40 years, driest winter in about 40 years. People that were here for a long time will think of 1976 as an analog. They did not open the ski area until January in 1976 because they didn't have snowmaking. So a couple things. The snowpack is shallow, and a shallow snowpack is really susceptible to a lot of changes, transformation of the grains that are on the ground due to temperature and vapor pressure gradients. So you develop a lot of, people call it sugar snow or facets or depth hoar. Basically, think of it as grains that are big with a lot of sharp corners, and they don't bond well with their neighbors. Okay, they don't sinter well with their neighbors. Those layers can collapse really easily because it's just a bunch of crystals that can easily collapse. There's no strength to the whole thing, not a lot of compressive strength. So you've got this weak layers, but it's not actually the depth hoar is one, but there's also a December drought layer. We got some warm weather at the beginning of December and then a long spell, and then some more storms starting at Christmas. Starting about Christmas, we put a slab on top of these weak layers. And there have been a couple breaks since then, but probably 40% of the snowpack has fallen since Christmas, since the solstice. And that's still pretty soft. People are still reporting trapdoor conditions at times. In other words, you're skiing or riding along and you fall through and something like that. It's a really soft slab. The density of the snowpack out there is really not very high. It's a very shallow, soft, porous snowpack, so it changes a lot and it doesn't gain strength very easily. A lot of people will tell you that this is going to be a deadly avalanche season. Oh my God, don't leave your house. And I would disagree with that. But a lot of it depends on what happens next. As a forecaster, the hardest thing is incremental loading. You know, the straw on the camel's back. Is this the straw? Is this the straw? All right, that's what I'm always trying to figure out. A good storm with 3 or 4 inches of water and a ton of winds, easy call, cleans out the problem. All right, we may or may not get that. So incremental loading will probably keep the danger pretty elevated for a long time. All right, another 3 or 4 weeks of dry weather will kill our slab, take it away, and we'll start over again with even more facets. But maybe not necessarily a lot of danger. We've been at low. I should actually add this up. We've probably been at low avalanche danger across the state, all elevation bands, all zones, for 2 or more weeks already this winter. So yes, it's a shallow, weak snowpack, but it's not necessarily a dangerous snowpack until we put a slab on it, which we did Christmas and early January and then last week. So does that answer your question? Yes.
I was just curious if you ever had it on extreme danger.
Parts of the state went black last year. Yeah, it hit extreme last year. Bunch of places in the state. Yes. Spicy moderate is what we got this week. Smaller slabs, big enough to kill you, high probability of triggering, no naturals. Few signs of instability. Can't really tell. It's not obvious. Spicy or spooky moderate. Any other questions? Great. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Boudreau. I'm a co-owner of AspenWeather.net. We've been in business for like, God, what is it, 7 years? 7 years, and it's amazing that people actually pay for weather. It's crazy. I didn't think we were going to be able to do that, but with this gentleman to my left, gold medal, award-winning meteorologist. Where are you from? Wisconsin?
I'm from the south.
No, you're from
North
the south.
Carolina.
That's where you went to school. I'm saying where you went to school. You guys, meteorology degree out over there, and we've been doing this for a little while. Just a little bit about us. We got together 7 years ago. I moved into his house. I needed a place to live, and I'm a weather nerd, so he started teaching me the models and this and that. And I said to him one day, I said, the NOAA guys out in Junction, man, they got a winter storm warning up, and I haven't seen a flake in in 24 hours. It was supposed to snow yesterday, he says, and so he tells me, and I said, man, we got something here. I mean, this guy's nailing it right to the T. He's like, oh, it's going to start snowing. Vertical motion comes in tomorrow night. It's going to start snowing. Meanwhile, all these other forecasters are calling for snow, and it's not snowing. So I'm like, we got something here. So that's how we got together, and we've been around for 7 years, and there might be some members out here tonight. I'm not sure. But if you want to be a member, it's AspenWeather.net, and our charge is not that much money. It's $80 a year, $60 for 6 months, and we got a bro deal and an iPhone Droid app coming out, and I've been talking about it for the last year. Hopefully, it's out in the next month or so, so look for that. We were talking earlier, the CIAC, they have their new app, and you just press the button, and there you go. It's going to be equipped with alerts, powder alerts, traffic alerts. The traffic alert's going to be great. So it'll tell you to go to McLean Flats and don't go this way, because I live over there. All kinds of alerts. So without further ado, Corey Gates, meteorologist Corey Gates. Take it away, bud.
Hey guys, how are you? All right.
We need some snow. This winter sucks.
So I thought about. I can't do that. So I thought about.
No, you gotta do that.
Do I need to? Oh, you're live on TV. Sorry. Okay. So when I was going to do the talk today, I'm thinking everybody cares about how crappy the weather's been. How's that? I could have used a different word. But let's not. I'm not going to dwell on that yet. We'll do that at the end, and I'll tell you what's going to happen, and you'll be happier. But what I found with almost every human being I know, and y'all are all probably great skiers, great whatever it is y'all do, most people have no clue where the weather comes from. It's just like this magical little fairy that tells you what's going to happen every day, but y'all should know how we get it. So I'm going to touch on this really briefly because it'll give you an idea of why there's error by the time I'm done. So I know you're tired. I'm going to pep you up here in a few minutes. All right? So what has to happen to get weather maps every day? I mean, like I say, they don't just appear. They're radiosondes that are hooked to big balloons that go up 100,000 feet and get a football field wide, and then they break. And then the radiosondes drop to the ground. As they ascend, they're taking temperature, wind, humidity, lots of stuff, data. This is the northern hemisphere. All those dots, excuse me, all those dots are where upper air balloons go up. Every day at 12Z and 0Z. It's universal coordinated time, it's called. In our world, it's 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. So at 5 p.m. this evening, every single one of those freaking blue dots, they let up an upper air balloon with a sounding on it. And they're going to do it again at 5 a.m. this morning. Now that looks like it's like densely packed, but it's not. So let me show you in the United States. So in the United States, an upper air balloon goes out of Denver, goes out of Junction, 5 p.m., 5 a.m. But look at, so can you already just envision why there's error? You know how far a drive it is between Junction and Denver. Fantastic amounts of weather happen between Junction and Denver that these balloons aren't getting. Look at the state of Texas, for goodness sake. Dallas to, you get the point. So all this, it has to be filled in, and it's filled in by science. It's filled in by jet planes. It's filled in by satellites when it's not super cloudy. It's filled in by Navy ships. It's filled in by a lot of stuff. So the reason I get yelled at, thank God not too often, is there's data void areas out in the Pacific Ocean. Let me go back really fast. This 20 minutes is going to go so fast. If you read AspenWeather.net every day, I'll mention the hideous data void area of the North Pacific. And you should read that every day now. Come on. There's nothing. There's no, at least there's something down here. Something down here. Something off Australia. Something off Siberia. This is the most data void area in the world. Unfortunately, where does our weather come from? It emanates from here. So we get a little bit over Alaska, but like tomorrow's system, it started out here. So it has to be filled in. It is not a perfect world. Things are 500, 600 miles apart out in here, and the models, you have to try to figure out which one is going to be right, okay? So let me explain to you briefly what happens. As these balloons go up, every 1,000 feet, they'll measure how many meters, like for example, at 10,000 feet above our heads. As the radiosonde from Junction goes up, it measures that's 3,615 meters. It's all done in the metric system. So So it starts at the surface, how many meters, and then it goes up to 100,000 feet. And every 1,000 feet, it measures how many meters that radiosonde is off the ground. Kind of understand that? Yeah? So, and it measures temperature, wind, and humidity at all those levels. So here, so what you have, so here's what the pretty picture looks like, and this is amazing at how this works, okay? So all these lines, okay, let's just pick this, 567, okay? That means that's 5,670 meters. Just forget about the meter part. But remember all the little dots for the upper air soundings, right? This is how it completes the picture. Everywhere along this black dot, like say the sounding went off in Richmond, the height was 5,670 meters. Well, the same damn sounding in Kansas went up, and they had a height to get to 18,000 feet. It was 5,670 meters. So they connect the dots all throughout the world, and out in the Pacific, there's heights of 5,670 meters that it takes to get to 18,000 feet. You see what I'm saying? So instead of just thinking about those upper air stations and having nothing to look at, once you connect the dots, you get a picture of what the winds look like at all these different levels. So this level here is 18,000 feet, or it's 10,000 feet above our heads, because roughly Aspen's 8,000 feet. You see what I'm saying? So see, it makes you immediately grasp things after the soundings go up. See the trough off the West Coast? Here's Aspen right here. This is the thing that's coming tomorrow night, and I'm gonna show you some cool things with that. But see how the wind flow is southwest, and then it goes, this is warm. These orange colors are warm. So there's a ridge aloft. So after you connect all the dots, there's a ridge aloft over the central and southeast states. There's a trough off the West Coast. And there's energy within this flow that I'm going to show you. As usual, it's snowing in Cook City, it's snowing in Big Sky, it's snowing in Teton Pass, it's snowing in Jackson Hole, it's snowing at Grand Targhee, it's snowing at Brooks Mountain Lodge, but it's not here yet. But this is coming, okay? So that's how we get that. It's not just the magic fairy, it's the upper air soundings, and then they connect all the dots. All these heights, all these people have the same height at 18,000 feet. So they're all connected. Got it? Pretty cool. So now we're going to introduce the most hideous term known to the human race. It's called vorticity. Vorticity is just, I have to put this down. Vorticity is a paddle wheel. The wind, if you just, damn it. Can't do it. It's just like if you had a little paddle wheel and put it within that flow. If you have stronger winds on the south side of your paddle wheel, it turns it cyclonically. If you have stronger winds on the north side of your paddle wheel, it turns it anticyclonically. It's kind of weird. Cyclonic is good, anticyclonic is bad. So what this is vorticity. So these colors are how we generate upward motion, okay? So the jet is coming in like this, and it's going up like that. So the paddle wheel is turning faster this way, counterclockwise, so this is good. These colors are good. It's anticyclonic, it's cyclonic curvature, because it's in the base of the trough. I'm not gonna bore you with all that, but these colors are good. And I'm gonna go through these colors here, and we're gonna show you how we do this every day, because you're going to see where this goes tomorrow, and then I'm going to tell you what's going to happen tomorrow night, and then I'm going to show you the coolest thing known to race after I show you this. All right, so what the models do, and we have tons of models. There's 8 or 9 different ones we use. There's 3 in Europe, the UK Met, the European model, and the German Icon model. The United States has the GFS model, the NAM model. There's the Canadian GEM Global. There's the Navy No Gaps model. All the physics from these models are different, but they all use the same data from the radiosondes. So the whole entire world, remember that very first graphic we saw those little blue dots? They take all that data and they put it in a big, huge computer system, and this is how these graphics are generated. Each of the models have subtle differences. I can tell you this, the computer, the Cray computer is in Suitland, Maryland. 1 quadrillion calculations per second. It's the strongest computer in the world, bar none. You can say Microsoft, you can say any computer company you want, there's no computer stronger. It goes from here to the gondola. It is the strongest server known to the history. That's like 14 zeros per second. There's no better computer. The weather has more math than any, oh God, just ask my tutors. All right, so here's what the models do. It advects it. The models know, I forgot to show you one thing. Yes, I know, I'm a little comical. But you gotta have a little humor, guys. All right, now, besides that sound, I wanted to show you one more cool thing. See this satellite picture moving? This is what, remember I told you that Dad avoid North Pacific? And there's no land out here, so there's no upper air stations. That's how the satellites can fill it in. So these are, you know, you can't really see those 3 lines back there, but that's 150 knots of wind, 110, 60. So we're able to fill in some of the data by the use of satellites, okay? So the only reason I showed you this is because I'm getting ready to show you how the models advect this trough from right here and how they advect it up toward our area. So I wanted to let you know, yes, the upper air stuff is great, but the satellite stuff is really good too. They're just able to track parcels of air. It's really, like, remember I told you that computer? They're able to do that. It's that good. All right, so let's look at tomorrow at how it's done. This is all right, this is now, got it? See it off the West Coast? This is tomorrow morning. It's over California. Remember, these colors are good. That's where upward motion's generated. Aspen's here. So it's nothing tonight. See, there's none of these colors, I'm making this simplified, but none of these colors where there's going to be upward motion or near Aspen. We just have a broad southwest wind which downslopes off of San Juan's, it downslopes off Crested Butte, it downslopes off of Marble. Anybody tells you a southwest wind is good, kick them. It's a terrible wind here. It never snows here with a southwest wind unless you have these colors to lift the atmosphere and change the downslope to upslope. So you have to have upward motion with the southwest wind. If you all read this site every morning, you would just die. Because I'll tell you that every day, just to go outside and just ignore it. Like tomorrow, the Weather Service has like 5 inches at the ski resort. It's not gonna snow a bit. This is southwest wind with no upper air support. All right, so here's 11 a.m. tomorrow. One, there's still no upper air support. But look at this, it's getting closer. Here's 6 p.m. And I'm going to show you forecast soundings in a minute. I'm going to show it to you right now. So here's the trough, got it? Remember it was out here before. It's easing inland. So how else? I mean, just looking at that map's not going to tell me squat about what it's truly going to do, but this is going to tell me a lot. So these are forecast soundings. And I'll actually be serious for a moment. This is probably for backcountry people and Avalanche people, mountain rescue people. This is probably the most important thing I'll show you all night. That the background is a thermodynamic diagram. Just forget about the name. It's called a skew T, but it tells you everything. Almost, you don't even need those colors. So 0Z Saturday right here. That's 5 p.m. today, just when people started coming in. You're just gonna have to grasp this. It's not hard, think. This is temperature, this line, you got it? Black line is temperature. The other black line is dew point. The closer those lines are together, the more relative humidity, or you're more saturated. Got it? Yes, I see head nodding. But the temperatures are what, and the wind profile, if y'all just woke up tomorrow morning or any day you feel like going in the backcountry and looked at these soundings, you're gonna know exactly what your wind is. You're gonna know exactly what your temperature is. Let me give you an example. 600, this is the only thing you'd have to remember, but since this is being filmed, you'll remember. 600 millibars is equivalent to 14,000 feet. So it's 6,000 feet above our heads. Got it? 650 is 12,000 feet. So when you look at this at home, you're just going to look at these 4 lines. 700 is 10,000 feet. 750 is our elevation. Let me give you an example. So here we said 650 is roughly 12,000 feet, right? Let's go over here to the wind. So it's southwest or west-southwest. Here's 30 knots. Here's 50 knots at 14,000 feet. So it's windy. So if I go call up, and I'm going to do it because I'm a loser. Here we go. Watch this. I'm going to call up the Avalanche Center. I'm going to call up their observations. Come on. Oh, don't tell me it's not going to work. There we go. No, I want to prove to you how important this is. You could look at it every day. Do you remember what the sounding said? It said 30 to 50 knots. Did you see that at 650? You want me to put it back up there? A little resistance. All right. See? 650, 30 knots and change. That's at 12,000 feet or 6,000 feet above our heads. So between 30 and 50 knots, the wind is blowing at 12 and 14,000 feet. So lo and behold, I'll call up the observations from Colorado Avalanche. Well, goodness gracious. Those soundings are right. Look, snow mass, 12,704 feet. God, darn, I almost cussed. 62 miles an hour. It's just exactly what that thing was saying. Look at 11,900 feet, gust 35. There's 42. Remember, it was between 30 and 50 knots. So it's blowing a gale up high tonight, and yes, we had that in the forecast. You can quickly go to Vail. Look at that. Same thing, 75 up at 12, almost 13K. Remember, at 14K, it was 50 knots. 50 knots is 58 miles an hour. Well, it's blowing, they had gusts to 75 up there. So that's one valuable part of looking at those soundings every morning. If you're gonna go, like say you walked out the door today, well, shit, I'm gonna go up high today and do what I want. But if you looked at that sounding, if this was a forecast sounding, it's done every 6 hours, you might not. Because it's telling you, remember, the 600 is 14,000 feet, 650 is 12,000 feet. It's telling you it's going to be blowing between 30 and 50 miles an hour. And I just look at those observations, and it is. And it'll tell you the temperature. Remember, this is the temperature line. It's hard for you would just have to look at it at home because it's in Celsius. So here's the 0, here's 32. So it's telling you it's like in the mid-20s, mid to upper 20s at 12,000 feet, and it's blowing 30 knots. So, but another important thing, see how the lines are separated? It's dry, it's clear outside. So watch what happens tomorrow. All right. Now, this is the forecast. This is like the process you have to go through on each day. So at 5 p.m. tomorrow, where's my time? 5 p.m. tomorrow, see this trough coming? Still not much upper air support. Now let's look at the forecast sounding for Aspen at the exact same time. Where'd you go? There. So the lines are closer together. But there's still, it's just like I told you, that hideous southwest wind. See it here? See it at 14,000 feet, 55 knots is 60-something miles an hour. So tomorrow's going to be windy for your thing. I don't know what the elevation's going to be, but if you're up close to 11 feet, it's going to be breezy. Not not super cold, probably be 33 degrees, but windy. This would tell you that without even me up here making you laugh. Now watch, now here's the key, see? No saturation. It's not gonna snow tomorrow in Aspen, for goodness sake. But it's going to tomorrow night. And here's why. See what changed? Now look at this. 6 hours difference. See where it is? Do you know where Colorado is on that map? Say yes. There you go. Now watch it get closer. Doink. See, this is better. This is really strong upper air support. This is called a stand-up cold front. It's due north-south oriented. Aspen's here, and it was back here earlier, and now it's coming east. Watch when I flip it one more. Now watch that big straight north-south red area. Doink. So now we're immersed in upper air support, okay? Now look at the difference in the sounding tomorrow at 11 p.m. Now you're gonna see a difference. You're gonna, instead of those lines separated, I don't even have to look because I already know what they're gonna look like. They're getting closer. Wait, I called it the wrong one. 36. So this is 11 p.m. My goodness. Do you see the difference? It just looks like one line. We're saturated from the surface all the way to like 30,000 feet. So we have 22,000 feet of saturation. If you were to look at these temperatures on the previous map, see how this is all like one line? It was over here 6 hours earlier. So we're actually cold advecting aloft. We're saturated. We have the color. Remember the colors? So we have upward motion, and it's saturated the air mass. It's going to be. Do you get it? You get that? It's cool. And then so during the day tomorrow, you don't have that. That saturation comes after dark. Sunday. Let's just do it now that I have you here. Little bit of a. It's still saturated. There's just a little bit of a lull in upward motion after we get the peak, like 8 to 3 a.m. A little bit of a lull. The wind is trying to ease into upslope. But you guys just need to really know how important this is. You can see the wind direction from Aspen all the way to the top of the Maroon Bells. Once you get used to reading this temperature and understand how to quickly convert Celsius in your head, you'll know the temperature. You'll know if the air mass is saturated. You won't even have to call me. You'll know if it's cloudy, if it's not cloudy. It tells you so many more things about instability and that stuff like that, which you'd kill me if I did. But so let's look at 11 a.m. Sunday morning. Back to saturation. Sunday, let's just put the weather up too here. Hold on one second. So there's 11 a.m. Sunday morning. See, we have a circulation now that's developed off to our east. The winds at high levels Aspen's here, have gone into a northerly direction. This is good. We just have a whole entire closed circulation trough over Colorado. The atmosphere, I can tell you that on Sunday at 11 a.m. is still unstable. And look what the sounding looks like. Yes, see? I know. It's deeply saturated still. It's saturated. Temperatures are much colder. See, this is a fluff profile. It's minus 18 Celsius. When you get to 14,000 feet, the temperature's between minus 15 and minus 20 Celsius, and you're saturated for over 5,000 feet, that's like the growing range of all dendritic crystals or snowflakes. It makes me excited. That's exactly where you want it to be. Between those temperatures, that's what produces the fluff that we're so used to here. If you see this temperature at 600 millibars way to the right, too warm, snow will be wet. You need it between minus 15 and minus 20. But you could call me if you start using these soundings, and I'll tell you what the exact temperatures are. But that's how we see, you understand how we get an idea? It starts from a radiosonde. They connect all the dots. The 1 quadrillion things per second are able to produce all these soundings. It's able to produce all these cool graphics with the colors. So there's later Sunday, still some lingering flakes.
And then see how there's not too much behind it. So Monday and Tuesday doesn't do much, but I wanted to hit this before I stop. See that coming? That right there is 11 p.m. Thursday night. That's the new one. So in my estimation, tomorrow night through 6 p.m. Sunday, 9 to 12 inches ski resorts. That's good. And then we get a little break Monday, Tuesday, maybe half an inch each day. And then we get this little beast coming at the end of the week. And this is how most all the guidance was pretty consistent with this. See it coming? See it? See it right over Colorado? It's got that nice closed circulation again. And what I have to decide each morning is that going to be correct? Or is it just this particular model and they all have biases? Is that going to be correct? But if all 8 of them say that's going to be correct, then Ryan and I can go out and I'll type that powder alert and everybody's jumping up and down happy, which y'all should be. And then you get it. So it's advection, but you just make decisions based on doing it for so long because I'm old. But you get that. I just wanted to show you what the graphics look like, what the sounding looks like, and where the weather comes from. And that's it. I won't bore you much longer. I'm done. Questions about you want to know what's going to happen the rest of the winter? Let's do that really fast. No, this will be fast, I promise. Actually, I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just going to show you a graphic. This site right here is called Tropical Tidbits. It's really cool because you can get everything at once. See, I can click climate, I can click CFS monthly, and I can give you, and if I click February and do regions and hit the entire, where is it? North America. That's what the models think the upper air pattern. Now remember what I told you what these lines are, remember? Those are all equal height. So Aspen's here. So the models think during February, there'll be a ridge off the Pacific coast, which is actually good. The air will come down. Now this is a mean though. This is a 30-day mean. So there'll be stronger storms embedded with this because it's a mean, you see what I'm saying? So that's not a bad pattern for February. Anything that's brown is above the climatological norm for what the height should be. So we're not. We're still in the white, and it's got some below normal heights across New England, which has been, they've had the winter this year. It's just us that's missed it. You all understand this as an outlier winter, right? You don't have 250 to 300 inches of snow from Jackson Hole to Big Sky since November 1st, for God's sakes. So that's all right here where my 2 fingers are. And we're here with only 50%. That is extremely rare. This pattern we have snow amounts similar to 1976, but the pattern aloft is nothing like 1976. It's just a total outlier. It's more of just a near miss. When you get up to Steamboat, it's even a lot better. And when you get just above the Wyoming, it's just a near miss. That's all I can say. You can't really, I couldn't have forecasted it. Yeah, and see, there's March. That's not bad for March. So we need some February snow. We need March snow so we don't have June fires. We haven't had a bad fire season locally in a while. If it doesn't pick up, we're going to have one. So March, the models are forecasting okay. We got a shot. If we can get 200 inches at the ski resorts, we've had 80 to 95s since October 1st. That's not very much. We're like 48%. If we can get it up to 200 and change by May, that'll help the rivers going and get the ground wetter, blah, 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 blah. So see, this sites can give you what, So I think the first, from now till the first half of February, good. Won't snow every day because that's just not likely. But it will get enough to where we'll probably have a normal January at the ski resorts. We get 2 feet between now and next Friday, tomorrow night, Sunday, and then another 12 from Thursday and Friday. That's a huge help. 50 inches a year is what the ski resorts average in January. We'd be close to that. If we can pull off 50 in February and pull off 50 in March, we'd have to call it a victory, being how bad November and December were. So this site gives you all that information, and that's questions. I don't want to go too long because you guys look tired. Come on, you got to have something. It is. The jet stream. Do you guys know how vertical motion happened? No, I better not do that. I wanted to so bad. But the jet is what caused. No, actually, I have a simple explanation. This is the greatest thing known to the human race. The jet is what causes all the weather. The weather doesn't start down here at the ground. It starts up here at 25 to 35,000 feet, and it lowers to the ground. Now, all a jet is just a fast-moving stream of air. There's two quadrants, the right front and there's just two quadrants of the jet that produce vertical motion, okay? So what happens at high levels when the jet is by? Air goes like this. It evacuates. So this is 30,000 feet. It evacuates up high. Pretty understandable, right? It's because of, it's called Dyne's compensation, because the Earth has to be in equilibrium. So when air is being displaced by the jet up high, what happens at the ground is air has to go up to replace the air that's being displaced by the jet aloft. So that's how we get vertical motion in a nutshell. That's what makes it snow and rain. The jet makes air go away up here. It's forced to rise at 10, 20, 30,000 feet to replace that air, and that's what causes vertical motion. That's the jet, as simple as you'll ever hear it. And it's very important. I could show you the jet on all these progs and blah, 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 but we just don't have time for that. We good? Yeah. Nice to talk to you.
Wow.
I did that fast. Now that wasn't too long.
What kind of wax do we need to put on our skis for March? Okay, that was amazing. Thank you so much. That was phenomenal. Okay, we're on a final stretch over here. We have an amazing member of our team that's going to talk beyond beacons. A quick announcement: Mountain Rescue members, please meet in the garage. We're going to do a quick briefing, and it is absolutely my pleasure to introduce Nate Rowland. Nate is going to talk about Beyond Beacons, and this is going to give you a huge lift here. You got a big act to follow here, Nate. You ready?
All right, thanks, guys. I know it's been a long night. I'll try to really keep it compact here for you. But basically, tomorrow you're going to learn tons about beacons, shoveling, probing, kind of the glamorous end of staying alive in the backcountry. But there's so much more going on than that. Everything from how we plan our trips, resources we have to do so. We've heard a lot about that in the last two presentations, so I will touch on that very briefly. And then I just have real quickly kind of my standard kit that I take out and why I bring the things I bring and kind of the thinking behind that. So, resources we have to go into the backcountry. CAIC, of course. I don't need to cover this. You heard it from Blaze. But not just they do our avalanche forecasts, they offer weather. They offer the observations, which are probably the most valuable thing for you. If you're doing a hut trip to the Taggart Hut, chances are there's an observation from the Taggart Hut in the last few days. So definitely check that out. When will it snow? What everybody wants to know. We have all these weather resources. We're lucky to have micro forecasting here with Corey. That's awesome. If you're slumming it and not paying for it, there's other resources out there as well, like opensnow.com, and of course, the government, NOAA, putting out daily forecasts, which, as they mentioned, you kind of have to learn how to interpret. Along with those forecasts, you can do point forecasts. So if you scroll down on the NOAA forecast, there's a little map. You can click on any point of that map, and it's going to give you the forecast kind of modified for that elevation. Those tend to be really optimistic when it comes to snowfall. But check it and start kind of getting those data points in your head. If NOAA says the wind's coming from the southwest and it's going to snow 12 inches, it's going to snow 2. You know, that sort of thing. So you start to build that kind of comfort level and body of knowledge to be able to interpret the different weather products out there. I'm a guide. I'm out every day in the outdoors, in the weather. I'm not just checking one forecast. I'm looking at a variety of forecasts. And if you're getting out a lot, I encourage you to do that as well. Things that I'm really paying a lot of attention to in particular, not just if it's going to snow, but what's the wind doing? A heavy rate of snowfall, it's like 2 inches an hour. The wind can move 20 inches of snow in an hour easily. So it's not just, is it snowing? Is that going to make it dangerous? Is it blowing? Is there snow to move? Is that going to make it dangerous? What are the temperatures doing? Okay, temperature spikes, quick changes in temperature, free water in the snowpack. These are all red flags you'll learn about tomorrow, and kind of tools that we can take by looking at the forecast. We haven't even left home yet, and we're getting this great picture of what's going on out there. And if you are on your boss's time sitting at a computer or just into it, start checking a lot. You're getting these updates to the forecast throughout the day. See where it's headed. Don't just look at what it says, but 12 hours ago, it said the storm was coming today. Now it says it's slowing down or speeding up, that sort of thing. And the value to that really comes in to when you're doing a longer trip. So you're going on a hut trip, you don't have these resources for a forecast for the next few days to check out there. So if we knew the storm was speeding up or slowing down, we can kind of run that out in our head and make some educated decisions as to what are the conditions going to be when we go over Pearl Pass to Friend's Hut or something like that 3 days out, 3 days later. And then route planning. Where am I going? There's great mapping resources online, particularly CalTopo. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. It's the most insane mapping tool ever, really. You can do anything on it. You can plan routes, you can look at slope angles, you can do almost infinite overlays, different maps. It's exceptionally powerful. And I'll show you slope shading here in a second, because that's just worth knowing. And then even something as kind of fun as Google Earth. If you're wanting to check out your route, go fly it on Google Earth. I mean, how cool is that? You just kind of cruise up the valley and go left here, up over that pass, down the other side. It just helps you kind of visualize where you're going to be. And you won't go off course. I mean, the beautiful thing about navigating in the mountains, there's peaks and valleys. Like, you have to really try to get in the wrong valley. You're not just going to find yourself there. So if you kind of have this planning or vision of where you're going, you're going to have a pretty good chance of staying on course. The other thing you can obviously do on Google is look at satellite imagery. You're looking at a satellite picture, there's a whole bunch of trees, there's no trees. What's that probably? Avalanche path, yeah, exactly. So just good information, someplace you've never been before, and you're just looking at a picture on a computer and you have all this good information. Maybe not a great place to have lunch, you know, that sort of thing. And then all this same stuff you can do on your phone. I'm not pushing any specific product, but there's a product called Gaia. It's my favorite mapping tool. Most of us here at Mountain Rescue use it as well. It has a lot of the same properties as CalTopo on your phone. You can track your movement as well, which is great because if you're not sure if you're en route or off route, now you have a little line going somewhere else, it's going to be really clear that you're off route. So here's just a quick picture of slope shading with CalTopo. So what this is showing us is how steep things are on average. Obviously, it's not insanely detailed. Like, there could be a little roll right here that's super steep. But this is Highlands Peak, Highlands Bowl, right in here. And basically, it's a really easy way to say where some steep terrain is, where kind of the sweet spots for avalanches, you know, which are actually these lower angles right here, where terrain like that is. But you also have to look at it and interpret it. Like, this low angle stuff right here, that's just a huge run out. So it doesn't mean it's safe if it's not red or purple or something like that, but it's just lots of good information. So I can, if Highlands were not, if it were the pure backcountry and I wanted to get a Highland Peak, I could say, well, clearly stay off the steep terrain, follow the ridge, the stuff we always do to stay safe without even thinking about it. But it's just another awesome tool to kind of have in your kit before you head out. So we have all this information, and what do we do with it? I'm a big fan of visualization. I've kind of alluded to it before. So we can I run the whole trip through my head. As I follow the map, I do it in my head, and I'm like, where am I going to run into trouble? Where are my hazards? Where are those avalanche paths? If I'm going to Goodwin Green, where is there not a tree in sight for a mile? And if it's blowing, I can't tell where I am. Like all these kind of places where we see issues as a rescue team, they have kind of some common themes, and you can plan for that. Whether it's, if my group gets separated on the way up Express Creek, I'm going to wait here at tree line so we can regroup before we head out into the big white abyss. So at least we mess up together, and we turn around together, and we don't wonder where everybody is. So yeah, like I said, dense forest, that can be hard to find your route in. Key junctions, something as simple as, am I going up Cooper Creek towards Lindley, or am I going up towards Pearl Pass? Like, let's stop as a group there, make sure we all make the right turn, and make this a fun experience rather than a kind of exciting experience wondering where everybody is. And then anticipate awesome. Like, we're doing this for fun. Backcountry skiing is fun. Tonight we're talking about a lot of like heavy stuff. This weekend's about surviving. We're trying to survive fun, which is kind of crazy, right? But you have to just keep it all in perspective. So that was just my quick trip planning thought there. And what else I want to cover here is just beyond beacons, shovels, and probes. There's a lot of things we carry in the backcountry to keep us safe. And I have my bag of items here. Bear with me, I'm one-handed. Even though my title said I wouldn't have shovels and probes and whatnot, I'm gonna start with a shovel. What's this? It's a toy. This is a toy. This is not an avalanche shovel. This is sold in stores as an avalanche shovel. This is purpose-built to check a box so you can race through the mountains in spandex, okay? Don't carry this into the backcountry. What do you do if your partner shows up with this? You trade him. And you see if he ever comes back with it. He won't. So anyway, keep that in mind. That's just my pet peeve. All right, so by nature of what they are, accidents and emergencies are unplanned events. We don't plan on having a terrible day. So we have to carry a bunch of stuff that we don't plan on using. That's me. I'll own it. Some of these things are really simple, like a down jacket. I mean, this thing, super packable, super light, doesn't weigh anything. I don't wear it most days. It's in my backpack every day. No big deal, right? Super simple. And so that's a down jacket. Same thing, synthetic. It's worth talking about for a second that there are differences between down and synthetic items. Down is probably a little warmer to weight. It's a little more packable potentially, but it's not going to do well when it's wet. In our climate here, down works pretty well. We don't get wet that much in the winter. In a place like Washington State, where I grew up, probably have a synthetic. That said, synthetics kind of deal with sitting at the bottom of your backpack a little better and don't blow feathers over everything. So there's kind of a give and take. But the important takeaway here is something warm in your pack, always, even the warmest day. I can be burning up, going uphill, working hard. All of a sudden, I have a really simple injury, or someone in my group does, and I'm freezing cold because I'm not moving. That will make a huge difference for me. And then, same deal. These are enormously comfortable mittens. I'll try to get them out. And I'm not pushing any specific product here, but these are awesome. So yeah, this is just a big old camp hot mitten. It gets giant once the feathers pop up. But I know if I have this in my pack, and I have it in my pack every day, if my hands get wet, I need to bail out of my gloves. If something bad happens, I'm coming home with all of my fingers, which is huge. Yeah, like it says up there, packable, light, warm, kind of a no-brainer. So now we're talking about long days. You know, you went out on a simple day, started to get kind of long. People are slowing down. The snow is really sticky. It's glopping up. You're just not covering ground like you thought you would. An easy thing to have is a headlamp. Everybody knows what a headlamp is, but one great trick to do with your headlamp, which I don't need to pull it out, somewhere in here. Make sure it uses the same battery size as your beacon. Some headlamps run on AA's, some beacons run on AA's, some headlamps run on triples, some beacons run on triples. It's such an easy way to have extra batteries in either direction for wherever you need them. Like it's just a great way to kind of get 2 uses out of everything, and you'll see that reoccurring. Skin wax. Everybody know what skin wax is? All right. If you're new to the backcountry, in the springtime, or really any time of year this year, when dry snow in some places and wet snow in other places mix, you start to glop snow on your skins. All of a sudden, your really expensive lightweight carbon racing shoes weigh like 13 pounds, which is terrible. And you're 4 inches off the ground. It's nuts. Skin wax is what you use in the field to prevent this. If you're into ski tuning, you tune your own skis, learn how to hot wax your skins. It blew my mind when I learned you can hot wax your skins. Like, it's crazy. You just like your skis. Pick the temperature, get it on the skins, and you're not gonna glop. It's fantastic. And then my most loaned out item when I'm in the backcountry, scraper pole. It's so simple, but there's only a couple brands making them. This is a Volet. I think BCA makes them as well, maybe somebody else. This or a metal scraper or some sort of scraper, whether I'm scraping snow off the top of my skis, the bottom of my skins, the glue side of my skins, because I drop them in the snow, which that's bad. It's by far, like if I'm at a transition, half the group usually asks me for this, which is a good indication that it's a useful tool. If you really don't have anything, a credit card is a great way to take care of scraping things. And then when it all goes wrong, first aid kits and med kits are a giant conversation. I'm really not going to go into that in too much depth. But I think there's a few important ways to go about it, which is build it yourself. Don't buy a prepackaged med kit. If you buy a prepackaged med kit, it's probably going to be Band-Aids and like, I don't know, a corn ring or just like the most arcane stuff that you really don't need. Or on the opposite end of the spectrum, if you buy one that's really hardcore, you're not going to even know how to use it. You're going to get like OPAs and NPAs and like things to stick up people's noses, and just, you don't need that. If you're not going to use it, don't carry it at all. So for me, yank a few things out here. You know, if I'm in a big group, it's a big kit with a lot of stuff, and if you know how to use it, that's great. Even here at Mountain Rescue, this is the med kit that we carry into the backcountry, every member. That's not very big. We can do a lot of stuff with this, especially if 3 or 4 of these show up. We can do a lot of stuff with this. There's obviously other kits that we take with us, but first aid kit doesn't have to be this thing that takes up half your pack. It's not. You can get a lot done with very little. Like I said before, use things that have lots of uses. On the next slide, I'll kind of address that a bit. But a Band-Aid can do one thing. You know, a roll of tape can do 50 things. It's an easy choice between the two as to what you're going to carry. And then a real quick note, which I'm kind of happy to see they're coming back into fashion, but rescue sleds are, lightweight rescue sleds are something that you can throw in your backpack. And if you're out skiing and somebody actually gets hurt and you want to move them out of the backcountry, this will do it. So this kind of specialized handle for a shovel here, this kind of platform, and these straps paired with your skis and poles are enough to painfully slowly but effectively move someone out of the backcountry. If there's just a couple of us, I may or may not carry this. If there's a big group, I look at everything in terms of skier days. And if a couple years ago, I took a hut trip from Aspen to Vail. It took 6 days, and we had 11 clients, right? That's a lot of skier days. Like, I have to kind of think about it. Will you get hurt in 66 days of skiing? Fair chance. So in a situation like that, a big group going on a hut trip might be worth carrying. That said, it's also worth knowing what's at the huts, which are big old rescue sleds. So that'll work a lot better than this. But just an example. And then what I alluded to before, just a few deep thoughts on first aid. Band-Aids can't do anything that tape can't do, right? Tape can do a lot of things Band-Aids can't do. And if Band-Aids and Advil can fix it, it probably isn't an emergency. So you kind of have to decide if you want to carry that stuff with you in the first place. That said, there's a lot of things that Advil can do. All right, repair kits. So ideally in the backcountry, you're breaking your stuff and not yourself. Same thing, back to the skier days. If I'm looking at 66 skier days, do I break a pair of bindings or skis in 66 days? You bet. I sure do. So in a big group going to a hut, somebody's going to break something. Just like first aid kits, repair kits should be multi-purpose. They don't have to be huge. This is mine, and this is actually kind of a part first aid, part repair kit right here. One thing every kit should have is a multi-tool. That's something you can't fake when you're out there. If you need a tool, you need a tool. You're not going to be able to just kind of create it necessarily. And then multi-purpose items like baling wire, straps, epoxy, some screws, hose clamp, things like that. Things that can solve all sorts of different problems can really make a big difference between a day and a bad day and a good day. Like I've had some really good days with broken ski poles that were cobbled together, or I've had fun skiing out, with a heel piece that was kind of broken, strapped, lashed around. So you can get away with it, and that's really what repair kits are about. It's not about thriving, more just surviving. These guys, Volet straps, they come in all sorts of sizes, all sorts of colors. They are backcountry gold. You break a buckle on your boot, this fixes it. Your skin comes off your ski because the glue's pretty bad, this kind of fixes it. There's literally 100 uses for it. Your pack blows up. You need to make a makeshift belt because you blew out your pants. I mean, all sorts of things. I haven't done it, but it could be a tourniquet. I mean, all sorts of things can be done with these, and they even hold your skis together. All right, this was October, by the way. That mountain has had way less snow on it ever since. But personal locator beacons. So something bad happens, right? It's a lot easier to deal with it if you can get help versus deal with it on your own. There's lots of different options out there. The two kind of dominant ones are InReach and Spot. Kind of putting a good word out there for InReach. It's a much more capable two-way communicator versus a Spot, which says, I'm in trouble, and I'm here. And InReach can say, I'm in trouble, and I'm here, and then you can text the message, which is huge for the kind of response that you get from a rescue team, no matter where you are in the world. The more information that we have, the better we can help you, basically. The better we can understand the sense of urgency, the better prepared we can be when we get there. Are we bringing a splint to altitude illness, or vice versa? Are we bringing oxygen to a broken leg? So having the ability to communicate the information along with the emergency location is huge. And then cell service in the backcountry. As we heard from Blaze, a lot of the accidents that are happening in the side country. Most of the side country has cell service. Don't forget that. You're not in the wilderness. You're right outside the boundary of a first world ski resort. Get on your phone. Activate the response. If you have spotty service, we're lucky. This county has text to 911, which is something that's going to work. If you don't have a good enough signal for a call, you can still text. That's huge. And then also within the next few years, we're looking at getting a tower on Highlands. That's going to change the way that people initiate emergency response in this valley in a huge way. You're going to see cell service at the Bells. You're going to see cell service up Castle Creek Valley, for better or worse. It depends on what you think, but that's definitely coming. And then radios amongst your own team. The bigger the group, the more likely it is to get separated. And once groups get separated, it's kind of like the first step in a cascade of issues, oftentimes, that we see. You can kind of get ahead of that cascade a little bit by having a couple radios. And obviously not all up at the front of the group, not all at the back, but a radio up front, a radio in the back, just kind of checking in on each other. So when one group gets to the hut and waits for an hour, starts to worry, where's the rest of the group? Instead of freaking out and heading back out, You just get on the radio and say, hey, where are you guys? Oh, we stopped and boiled some water and had a cup of tea. Great, we'll see you in an hour. No big deal. And all these things are cheap. Like everything I've talked about is cheaper than your beacon, which isn't necessarily cheap. But like a two-way radio now, it's like $20. I mean, it's no big deal, and it's a hugely powerful tool, amazingly powerful tool. So just keep that in mind. And then where am I anyway? GPSs, like those big old school GPSs, they're kind of dinosaurs, right? Everybody has a smartphone. Every smartphone has a GPS. It's amazing. It's ridiculous. I talked about the mapping apps earlier. There's 100 of them out there. Get one for lots of reasons. So you know where you are, so you can plan where you want to go, so you can tell somebody else where you are if something goes wrong. It's just an easy way, something you always have with you. I mean, I think everybody could go in their pocket right now, pull something out like that. That said, if you're going to rely on a cell phone, have a spare battery. Phones and batteries perform alarmingly poorly in cold temperatures. So keep that in mind, absolutely. And then paper map and compass. Like I said earlier, navigating in the mountains is, our mountains at least, generally straightforward. There's valleys, there's peaks, there's passes. You can kind of, in decent weather, connect these things together visually. You might not need a compass. If you are going to carry a compass, at least know how to use it. Fewer and fewer people do these days, use them or know how to use them. And it's also, it's good to have a paper map for when you're talking with a group of friends about your plans for the next day, just so everybody's on the same page. Every peak in this valley has like 8 names. Like, are we going to Shime or are we going to Sunshine? I don't know, it's the same place. Every run, like out on the side country, has 8 names. It depends on how old you are and like who you ski with and whatnot. It's a huge headache for search and rescue. So having a map kind of at least brings everybody to the same page when you're having these conversations. Let me see what else I forgot in my bag here. All sorts. I put all sorts of stuff in here. Radio, map.
Are you going to have that tomorrow night on display?
What?
Your backpack. Are you going to have your bag tomorrow night?
If you'd like me to.
Yes, I think it'd be great.
Don't take anything.
Everybody can kind of take a look.
Yeah. Yeah. Then, in closing, what's this? It's a toy. This is actually my son's toy. I live on Little Annie Road, and it fell off somebody's snowmobile, and I gave it to him. He loves it. So thanks, guys. Be safe. Have fun. Thanks for your time. I know it's late. Any questions or anything at all?
Questions for Nate?
Awesome.